Before we get to the clinic itself, I'd like to address a few things that I missed before because I am a big, stupid duty head. After you get the wire cutters as Grace, a deer head just seems to pop off of the wall in the hotel, thus being another random scare moment. I have no idea why it pops off the wall, it just kind of does. It's like, I gotta scare you now, I'm gonna jump at you. Whoa! And Grace was bit by a zombie, but it seems that nobody is actually concerned about that at all, even though zombie bites are known to cause infections and thus make you a zombie. But just no one ever acknowledges that Grace might become a zombie because she got bitten by one. Come on, people, you've dealt with zombies before. You know that these bites are dangerous. And so does literally anyone else who's ever seen any zombie media. They know that these bites are dangerous. Come on, man. If a zombie is on low health and Leon gets up close to it, he can get like a special finisher on it, which I guess gives you style points. There's no style meter in the game, but I guess if you want to be very stylish and waste some ammo, then you can get some super special kills up close. There's only like 3 or 4 unique special kill animations once a zombie is on low health. And you have to be very close to the zombie to actually pull it off. So I don't see people getting too many of these special kills, at least on their first playthrough. Because, again, zombies attack you by trying to bite you, grab you, bite you, kill you. So trying to get close to it to kill it is not very ideal. You know what I mean? Leon, with his axe, which is this is the axe. He can do like that and kind of parry some of the enemy attacks that come his way and then do a counter attack. So that kind of adds more to his combat, but you have to let the enemy get close in order to pull off the parry, and these are zombies again, and again, you're probably not gonna want to get them too close to you, your personal face that you don't want bitten, so you might not see that many parries over the course of the game, but it's there, it's an option. Leon is not the actual one who saved Sherry in Resident Evil 2, at least not the remake. It was Claire Redfield who did that, and I know that. I know that when I said that. I knew that when I said that, at least. And I said it anyway, that Leon saved her, but I'm going to count him as saving her at least a little bit anyway, because he was there. He got her out of the city. He held her hand out of there, at least in the remake. I haven't played the original yet. I guess I'm just a fake fan, aren't I? Played 1 remake, 2 remake, 3 remake, 4 and 4 remake, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. But totally a fake fan because I never played the original 1, 2, and 3. I will soon, though. I will someday soon. One more thing that doesn't make sense about Leon having to get Sherry to be in the government to be his helper is he already knew someone in the government who was his helper, who was Hunnigan. That was her name. I'm not sure what her title was. I was gonna say director, but I don't know what her title was. But Hunnigan, she was in Resident Evil 4 and 6, and she helped out Leon because she was in the government, in the DSO, so why did they have to bring in Sherry? Why not just bring in Hunnigan again? Because she's the one who helps out Leon on these missions usually. You don't have to say that his best friend from 30 years ago somehow got in the DSO, because you already had a DSO agent who he talked to on his radio. But whatever. Even though Gideon was involved in Umbrella, the corporation that infected the world with zombies multiple times, he somehow was just walking as a free man and was able to purchase a care clinic, and nobody ever investigated him up until now. Leon is the first person to ever investigate him, and I'm just like, man, why? The last thing I'd like to note before we get started is that they have already started to steal things from other media, being the Silence of the Lambs. Grace is a lot, or at least a little like the Clarice from that movie, the main character, in that she is an FBI agent and a lady, and I'm not sure if Clarice wears glasses or not at some point in the movie. It's been a while, but she also has short hair, so I'm just like, well, wait a minute. Put two and two together. That's a copy of Silence of the Lambs. So, thanks for stealing things, game. Why you gotta steal things? Why can't you just make up new things? But that about covers all of that stuff that I forgot. Maybe I'll think of more stuff I forgot later, but as of now, let us get into the care clinic itself with Grace. Grace awakens upside down on this sort of stretcher thing. I don't know what it's called. It's some sort of bed thing that lets you lay upside down. It's like upright, and she's this is Grace. She's like that, and my hand is the bed thing, and she's like that, yeah. And her blood is being drawn from her arm into this blood bag, or rather blood vial, and nobody's around. She's all alone, and for some reason this blood thing is going up from her arm and not down from her arm. I feel like you're going a bit against gravity there. I'm not sure how much that would work. Maybe they have like a blood pumping machine or whatever attached to her. But anyway, it's being pulled out of her upward and into this glass blood vial. And I'm just like, well, wait a minute. Why is that made of glass? Aren't those usually made of plastic or something, like a plastic blood bag? But if it were made of plastic, then maybe she wouldn't be able to get out of her current situation, and we can't have that now, can we, as writers of one of the biggest horror series out here? In gaming, at least. But she sees this and is like, oh wow, what kind of situation am I in? And she like grabs the tube in her arm and yanks the thing onto the floor, thus breaking the glass, which that's really lucky that it just broke that quickly. You didn't have to try again, didn't have to smash it on the floor, you just kind of yanked it and it broke on the floor on your first attempt. Very, very lucky of you, Grace. Very lucky that it's not a plastic bag, and very lucky that it broke on your first attempt. But anyway, she pulls the glass bottle thing that's broken up to her hand, and she cuts through the thing that's keeping her strapped down to this table here, and then she loosens the other straps and uses momentum to like rock the thing onto the floor. And now she's back and upright again, and you can start playing as Grace. Gracio. So you start off in this room over here, and there's a couple of things to look at, a couple of things to read, but nothing too important. There's a lamp you can turn on and off, so that's exciting. That's my light switch over there. It's little and tiny and little. You can turn off the lights, you can turn them back on again. Woohoo! But you go through this hall, and there's a bottle on this table, but you can't get it. Surely it's too dark to see, even though there's a red light shining onto it. But anyway, you can try to go into this hall over here, and it's just way too dark to see anything, surely. But you can try to flick on this light switch, and the light will kind of shine, but it'll flicker on and off. So it's just too dark, you see. But if you do flicker it on and off, then a bottle A glass bottle just rolls out of the darkness. And this bottle is not here any other way. You just have to know to flick the light on, and the light flickers, and a bottle just rolls out at you because that's spooky. But you can pick up the bottle, and it says that it can distract enemies if you throw it, which we will get into later. We will get into that later as to how effective that is in gameplay, because it's not very effective. But you can try to enter this door, but the game just says it's too dark to see. Even though this door is not locked, you just can't enter there because I guess it's too dark. So you go back, you go up, and you go over here, and you turn on this light to see down this hallway. And you can see this door, but there's a lock on the door. Let's hope that key is in a place that takes some clever thinking to get to. But you get to the end of the hall, and you find the exit over here, which you cannot get into yet. You need to find a fuse, because there's one fuse in this fuse box over here, but the other is missing, so you gotta find another fuse. So you go to the end of the hall, and there's this drawer, and there's a lamp on this drawer, and the hitbox for there's a prompt for press the lamp, and there's a different prompt for open the drawer. And the prompt for pressing the lamp activates at a further distance than opening the drawer does. So you're more likely to turn on and off the lamp multiple times before you are likely to open the drawer that is under the lamp. And I just find that kind of goofy, like the dog. But you open the drawer and you find a key, and the key goes to this door. Of course. They had to do it again. The third time already that we have found a key that goes to a door that is in the same room as the key. Incredible, really incredible game design here. They just had to teach you the same lesson 3 times, because you're too stupid to understand, you little baby person. But one interesting fact about this door is that even if you've seen this door in the light, if you turn off the light over here, you cannot enter this door no matter what. You have to turn on the light before unlocking the door. And I don't think that's very freeing of the player. This door being locked just because it's dark, and this door being locked just because it's dark, shows a lack of player agency. They really just want to filter you all the way to the key, and then all the way to this door, and then all the way in here. They don't want you to do anything else but go in here. You can try to go in here, I think, but again, it's too dark to see, so you gotta go in here. And here you can find your first typewriter. It's taken us like an hour to get here or so in game time, and this is the first time you can actually manually save your game. It has autosaves, but this is a long time to wait before giving the player a chance to save the game. You really wanted us to go through all that intro stuff, didn't you, before letting us save whenever we wanted to. What's up with that, man? But over here is a cabinet with another bottle. I'm not gonna say where every single item is that you can get. I'm just doing it here because there's a lot of bottles here. There's 3 whole bottles. There better be a good way to use these bottles. A good way to tutorialize the player on how to use these bottles too. But that's a bed. Whenever you see a big blocky thing like that on my maps, that's usually just some random piece of furniture that's blocking your way. That means that you can't go there because there's some big thing blocking it. So there's a bed there. So you go in here and you find the other fuse, but it's in a fuse box already, and the fuse box is screwed shut, and you don't have any tools on you. What terrible luck that you got all your stuff taken from you. I guess that's not luck, that's just how it should happen. They should take all your tools from you if they're the villain who's kidnapping you. But anyway, right next to the fuse box you can find a lighter. Oh boy, a light source. That means we can get into the dark areas we couldn't have gotten into before. Yay! Yeah! So you take the lighter and you go all the way back over here. You can grab this bottle now, because now you can actually see with the lighter, even though, and I emphasize this, there is a red light in this room that allows you to see pretty well, and you can clearly see the bottle on the table before you get the lighter, but you need to get the lighter in order to get this bottle at all. Even though you can see it. I anger at you, video game. But you go back to this dark corridor, and would you happen to have it, you can now open the door because you have the lighter. Not because it's any brighter, but because you have the lighter in particular. And I tested this. You can open the door just because you have the lighter. You do not have to have it lit. You can have it still dark in the room, and you can open the door now. So the only requirement for opening this door is having a light source, but not having the light source actually be on. I shake my fist at you, game. But once you open the door, it activates a cutscene, a little bitty cutscene for little bitty people. So in this cutscene, a body falls out of the room, and it is very, very clearly dead. But despite that fact, despite how it looks, Grace checks its pulse anyway, and she's like, and I quote, "He's dead." That's what Grace says. Thank you for your incredible insight, Grace. But then a monster girl walks up behind you, grabs the body, and bites its head off. Because it's huge. It's a huge monster girl who has like raptor feet for some reason. I guess that's just how her zombie virus mutated her. And then the monster girl looks at you and roars at you. Ah, spooky. Instead of like killing you, she just roars at you, and then you're able to escape. And so now you run all the way back here and all the way back into the starting room, because there was an optional thing in this room that you could have found. Before the chase starts, you could have gone into this room and found this book that is supposed to be a children's book, I suppose, but all it really says is there is a dark monster in the shadows, and in order to avoid it, you should stay in the light. And I'm just like, man, who wrote this children's book? Who put it over here? And just why? Just... I find it hilarious that this is a children's book at all, and that someone took the time to write it and make illustrations in it. And then at the end, they just kind of give up on making illustrations and just put in big letters, "Stay in the light." And I'm just like, man, who took the time to put this thing together and put it in here for kids to read? Why not just have like a manual or some researcher's notes that says light seems to hurt this big monster girl? I don't know. That's what I would have done. I would have made it researcher's notes or something like that. But you could have at least also gone up to this closet and gotten jump scared by a lamp. which is... The lamp just kind of jumps out at you, and it's like, ah, scary. What's scary about a lamp? Nothing's scary about a lamp, except for the sudden jump, I suppose, that it gives you from jumping out at you. But you can find a note in here that says that the screwdriver that you need for the fuse box over there is in the nurse's station which is why we're going over there and why we're being chased. But anyway, at the end of the chase, you go into this room, which is all well lit, and the monster, her skin burns because it's so well lit in there. And then she kind of crawls back into the ceiling because that's where she comes from. There are certain holes in the ceiling here and there that she will come down out of and try to nibble upon you by like chasing you. But now that she got her skin burned, she crawled back up there and she's gone for the moment. One thing about the monster is, even though it is supposed to be a blind monster, more often than not it just acts like it can see you whenever you are within eyesight of it. Like, noise doesn't really matter. Like, you can run behind this thing and it just won't hear you, as far as I've seen at least. And whenever you are caught, that's it. You're just caught. There's no escaping. It'll just know where you've run to, no matter what. Which is not it just doesn't give a lot of options to the player as to how to deal with this thing. It's pretty much you have to run back into a spot where there is light. And you can't just, well, I'm just like, well, what if I run down here? The monster pops down from the ceiling in front of me. So I run backwards and then I try to hide over here. Well, no. You see, the monster saw you. Therefore, it is in this mode where it just knows where you are. So even if you squat behind here and hide from the monster, it'll see you anyway, because it saw you before. And it's in the mode where it just has seen you, so there's just no escaping unless you get to a part where there's lots of light everywhere. And that's just not very satisfying. I want more ways to deal with this monster, people. But another thing about the monster is that it is very huge, so if you ever get cornered by it, it's very tough to escape. Unless if it like presses its body up against you. And if that happens, then you might just clip through the monster and be able to run away that way. But either way, it's just very odd to have it be that you can have this invincible monster because you don't have any weaponry at this point. And you just have to run from it, and you can get cornered and die that way. It just, man, why did you make it like that? You can try to use the empty bottles to distract this monster, but it doesn't seem very effective, and these bottles have a much better purpose much later on, but I just think that it's very odd that in the area where you're given the bottles, you're not actually expected to use them at all to avoid the monster and hide in different places. But as we've seen, there isn't really much hiding going on here, so I guess there's not much bottling going on here either. But anyway, now that you have escaped the monster, you can now go back to the nurse's station. She's just gone for now. I think that if you run down here, then she pops in front of you, but she's gone for now, so don't go down there. So you go back in here, you go to the nurse's station, you can find a medical injector. We'll get into what that does later. There's different items you can find, and what we want to see is this toolbox, which has the screwdriver in it, that we need to open the fuse box. But we can't get up on there. It's on a super high shelf that Grace could probably reach if she just outstretched her arms. But Grace is feeling lazy today. So instead, we go over to this cart that we can move. But wait, before we move that, on this thing here, this cabinet that you can open, there is a coin. Now, why is there a coin? We'll get into the coins later, but the only way to get this coin is to get onto the cart and then pick up the coin. However, if you move the cart at all from its starting position, even if you put it back against the little cabinet thing, the locker thing, you cannot get the coin at all. if you have moved the cart even an inch, which I think is very, very strange. Why not make it so that I can like see the coin from over here, from where I get the toolbox, and then I go, oh, there's a coin over there. I'm gonna move the cart back there and then get the coin. But instead they're just like, haha, you missed out on this coin. And I mean, there are more coins than you actually need in this game, but I'm just like, man, that's very odd that it just acts that way. It just doesn't allow you to get the coin. Like, come on, man. The game's already limiting enough as it is to this point. But there's also a corpse over here that you can move in order to open a drawer. And guess what's inside the drawer? It's nothing. So anyway, you move the cart over here, and as you move the cart, things fall off of it. However, if you move the cart very, very, very slowly, like inch it forward, then nothing falls off of it. But the average player will probably knock things off of the cart anyway, so let's just say that while you're moving the cart, things fall off of it, and as they do, the monster gets activated outside here, and you can see it through the windows in this nurse's station. So you're like, ah, there's the monster, I gotta hide, but you have plenty of time to move the cart over here and pick up the screwdriver. And then you can move under here to hide. There's some things you can hide under, some planks or whatever. And then the monster comes into the room, and even though you are in clear eyesight of it, it just cannot see you, I suppose, even though most of the time it acts like it can see you. But it just can't see you right now. So you, while it goes over here, you run through the door. And let me take a moment to mention something that is highly annoying. If you are running as Grace, you have two different kinds of runs that she can do. One is the regular run, and the second is a more panicked run that she does when there's a massive monster chasing her. However, these two runs are exclusive to third-person mode, because there's a first-person mode and a third-person mode. And whenever she is panic running, it is very highly likely that every few steps she could just trip on the ground and cost you a few extra seconds. Which is highly, highly annoying. They were like, hey, you remember when Smash Bros. Added tripping back in Brawl? Let's do that, but in our survival horror game. Surely that'll add to the fun of the game. I'm pretty sure that from interviews from before the game came out, they actually said that they wanted to keep it scary, even in third-person mode, and that tripping would be the way that they would do that. Game designers, you did this on purpose. I don't like you very much. But anyway, you run down here now that you have the screwdriver, and she bursts through this door because there were things blocking this door, which is why you couldn't come in through this way. But now you can. And now that you can go through here, you can run away from her and go in a big circle and go back through the door. Sometimes she reappears right in front of you, and if she does, you can just run backwards through the circle back there. But either way, you do a big circle, and you run away, and you go back into this room, and oh no, lightning happens, just random lightning happens, which destroys the lights in this room for some reason. And I might take a note of something right now. Whenever Grace is too scared of something, not you, but Grace herself, she will stop in her tracks because she's so frightened of whatever is happening in front of her. But I'm just like, Grace, I am trying to control you so I can get away from a big monster. Please move your butt right now. But anywho, we go back up to the fuse box and we unlock it with our screwdriver. And we take out the fuse. Yay, we have the fuse. Yeah. And oh no, the monster comes down from a big hole in the ceiling. How unforeseeable! And so we panic run all the way back to this place and put the thing in there, put the fuse in there, and the gate opens up and a cutscene plays. So in this cutscene, Grace crawls under the gate as it's opening to get away from the big old monster trying to chase her. But oh no, she can't crawl away fast enough and the monster grabs her, but she just kicks it away, kicks the hand off of her. Well, that was anticlimactic. So now Grace totally gets up and runs away, right? No. Grace continues to crawl away, and of course the monster grabs her again and drags her into the darkness and smashes her against the wall, which kinda hurts her, but it doesn't actually hurt your health bar, or rather health status, as we'll get into later. But anyway, she drags Grace. She drags Grace all along the ground, and she just kind of stops at some point and makes growling noises while Grace is just laying there on the ground all terrified, and then it cuts away. That's how the cutscene ends. Before I have to make another segment that's like, oh boy, I forgot this thing. Back in this room, when you run into the light for the first time, the monster will just kind of stay there once it's burned in order to go back up into the ceiling. But if you approach it and get too close to it, then it can swipe at you. So that's interesting. And also, if the monster finds you over here, then while you're under these things, she can like bat them away in order to destroy them, which is, I guess, neat. So there. No forgetting this time. So we cut away to Leon, who is driving up to the clinic. He sure is. And he is seen on camera entering the building. Oh no, who sees him? It's probably Dr. Gideon. Probably because he's the main bad guy of the game. And that's how that works. It's usually the main bad guy is spying on you. A nurse finds him wandering around in the main hall, and she's like, hey, Gideon has an appointment for you. You better follow me, Leon. And she also says that she is new here, which I don't know why we needed to know that, but we do know that now. Once Leon enters this other room, the door closes behind him, but oh no, there's no handles on the door. He can't get out of here. Ah! As you're given control of Leon, literally all that you can do right now is walk behind the nurse as she leads you down this corridor, and I'm just like, why? Why do I have to walk? Why can't I run? Why can't I run behind the nurse? The dialogue is not important at all. At least in this segment, it's not important. But she leads you all the way this way and all the way into this room. And she's like, oh, you better stay in here and wait. And she closes the doors on you. When you get inside the room, a cutscene starts. And the nurse is like, you've got to wait in this room, Leon. And then we zoom in to a camera that is inside the eye of one of those prop skeletons. And it's like, man, how has no one ever seen that there is a camera inside the eye of a prop skeleton? Who isn't gonna look at a prop skeleton? And that thing, skeletons are white. A black little camera in the center of the eye of a prop skeleton will stand out like a thumb that is highly sore. But anyway, the intercom blasts this lady's voice, and she says, it's an emergency, something bad is happening in the clinic. And the nurse bursts back into the room to get Leon out of there. But oh no, a zombie walks up behind the nurse with a massive, huge chainsaw. And I'm just like, well, why? Why is there a chainsaw in this hospital? I know that chainsaws were originally made to aid in the birthing process, probably to make C-sections or something like that. But why is there a just regular, massive, huge chainsaw in this hospital where we are trying, or rather clinic, where we are trying to heal people and not kill them? But anyway, this zombie man sadly chainsaws through the nurse, through just right through her torso, and Leon watches this entire thing. He has a handgun. He has countless years of experience, like 28 years plus of experience dealing with zombies, and he just does nothing. He just watches this guy destroy this lady's torso with a chainsaw. And I'm like, man, come on, Leon. You could have done something. You could have kicked a bullet at that guy at least. Come on, Leon, kick your bullets at him. But Leon dodges the chainsaw and says some cool guy lines, because Leon is the cool guy who says cool things, isn't he? Isn't that the character who Leon is? So now you are given the task to defeat a whole horde of zombies in this whole area. It goes from there to over there. And if you defeat the zombie that is wielding the chainsaw, then the chainsaw can fall on the ground, and you can use it, huzzah! But before you can use it, the chainsaw for some reason just dances all around on the ground. Like in a circle, it just keeps on spinning, and while it's spinning, it can deal damage to you, but not to the zombies. So zombies can pick up the chainsaw while it's spinning, but you have to wait for it. By the way, the zombies can pick up the chainsaw. But the zombies can kind of just saw through you. If they have the chainsaw, it's kind of an instant kill. But if you have the chainsaw, then you can instant kill the zombies. At least on normal mode. I'm talking about normal mode here. If you're on harder difficulties, maybe it's more chainsaws, more chainsaw hits for a kill. But on normal mode, it's one chainsaw hit. So that's what I'm going with. And it's kind of... I get why they gave Leon the ability to get a chainsaw, because in Resident Evil 4 you can fight chainsaw guys, but you can never actually wield the chainsaw. And given how many times you're gonna die to that chainsaw, it would be pretty cathartic to be able to use the chainsaw against the enemies that have killed you so many times. But here it's not very cathartic, because this is the first chainsaw enemy in the game, so you haven't really been given the opportunity to build up a hatred for the chainsaw enemies, in this game at least. So from that point it's kind of a failure, but also on the point of just how satisfying it is to use, it is also a failure, because it's more like you're swinging a huge bat around that's very heavy than it is like you're swinging a huge chainsaw around, because you just kind of whack the zombies with the chainsaw, and a lot of the time it doesn't really deal any damage to the body, like physical damage. It sure does HP damage, but I mean physical damage. Maybe it'll rip off a limb or two, because limbs can fall off of the zombies if you shoot the limbs enough. But it never cuts where you're cutting. And I'm just like, man, if only it cut the zombie where you cut the zombie, and you could like slice them in half or something. Something like Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, where you can just cut all your enemies in half exactly where you slice them. But hey, it's 13 years later, and I guess that technology is just lost to time now. Occasionally, when you're swinging around the chainsaw, it can get stuck inside of an enemy, and then you just don't have the chainsaw anymore. And the chainsaw will eventually kill the enemy, and then a different enemy will pick up the chainsaw. And sometimes you can, when you knock the enemy on the ground, they will try to hold onto the chainsaw but the chainsaw will like make them dance forward on the floor. Like it'll make them jump forward because it's still running. Even though I'm pretty sure a chainsaw, when it's not in your hand, it just won't run because you have to like push a button on it to make it run. But whatever with that logic. Who needs logic anyway? But sometimes the enemy will accidentally cut into one of their own friends, and then the chainsaw will get stuck through the back of a zombie and through their torso, and if the zombie hugs you, then you're dead, because it goes through their torso and through your torso too. But anyway, enough of all this zombie nonsense. Once you're done with all of these zombies that are in this area, then these doors open and there's more zombies, and then you deal with them and you can finally just explore around, pick up whatever items you're missing, and there's a door here, but you cannot enter it. I don't know why. I don't know why they put this door here if you just can't use it at all. This is not the only door like this. There is at least one other door that you can see, but you cannot enter. And I just find it very strange, Resident Evil people. I'm not calling you evil people, I'm just calling you Resident Evil people. But you go to this door, which is a big double door with a huge, massive barrel lock on it. And it's a super thick barrel lock. And Leon, instead of like lifting the barrel lock or trying to like kick it open, is like, aha, I will chainsaw through this huge, massive barrel lock. And because he chainsaws through the huge, massive barrel lock, it destroys the chainsaw, because of course it does. Short live the chainsaw. You thought you could have the super satisfying weapon forever, but you can only have it for a very short amount of time. But anyway, he then kicks through the door once the metal is bitten through enough with the teeth of the chainsaw. And he runs up here, and what's that? There's a thing on this fireplace. It's a Mr. Raccoon guy, because Raccoon City is the thing that is the place we're going to later in the game. And you can shoot or stab this thing, and it'll give you rewards, but only in the post-game. So we'll get into that much later. But basically, a lot of these Mr. Raccoon guys are very, very easy to find. It's only like a couple of them that are tough to find, and that's because they are well outside of where the player would usually be looking for them. But we'll get into that, maybe. Maybe we'll get into that. It's not really a highly important part of the game, so maybe we'll just like touch upon it later. But you go up the stairs here, and then you appear you appear over there. So you go through there, and suddenly you call Sherry. And while you are talking to Sherry, you have to walk. You can't run through this hallway, you have to walk. Because, I don't know, because they don't want you to have any fun. That's me being joking, not me being serious. I'm joking like an egg, okay? But you go through here while talking to Sherry. She does not say anything important. All she says is that she has hacked into the system in the clinic, and as we will see, that means literally nothing for the story. And Leon just says, oh, that Gideon, I'm still going after that guy, which we already knew. So literally nothing is gained from the dialogue here. But you go over here and then you exit there. So the exit leads to here, and then you can like walk a few steps over here, and then the gate that Grace opened up before opens up, which is strange because it's Grace opening up the gate, because that's where we are in the timeline. But the thing is, Leon was not in the cutscene with Grace earlier. She didn't see him, she didn't call out to him, so why is he suddenly here now for the start of the cutscene? Wouldn't it make more sense if he, like, heard her struggling with the monster and then ran in to try to save her? But no. What actually happens is you're given a cutscene where Leon just, I guess, sees that Grace crawled out of there and got beaten up by the monster and got dragged into there with just also without doing anything, just like what he did earlier. So I guess he's consistent in that way. He is very consistent in his inconsistency. But then Leon pulls out the Requiem, which, if you don't remember because you're a silly little goose, that is the Magnum revolver. And Magnum revolvers are super highly powerful. They're the strongest guns in any of these games, except for like rocket launchers, but those are one-hit kills. So I'm not counting that as a regular gun that you can use. Magnums are the strongest regular guns that you can use. So he shoots the monster girl, and it like explodes this side of her skull open, and she falls on the ground, presumably dead, presumably. And then Leon saves Grace, yay! But she's all in panic mode, because of course she is. Grace is always in panic mode, if not just in total fright mode. And Leon, in this cutscene, he, just to tell you the number, he shot the monster 5 times in the head, and the Requiem holds a total of 5 bullets inside of it. So the gun should be empty right now, correct? So Leon tries to check on Grace, but she's still all frightened, so he like backs off, and he does this in such a way that she is now outside of the gate, and he is now inside of the gated area. And this is just so that pretty much Leon can get stuck behind the gated area, and Grace can be free to explore the rest of the facility. I just find it funny just how obvious a setup it is. But anyway, we then see that Gideon is hiding in the shadows just around the corner, literally just around the corner. And he pulls out this device and locks down the whole facility. So like gates appear around the entrances and a good amount of the windows. So this place is locked down. And this is the point where I'm like, wait a minute. Sherry said that she hacked into this facility. So therefore, Leon, why don't you call Sherry right now and say, hey, do you mind unlocking down the facility, Sherry? But no, he does not do that. Instead, he's like, hey, Grace, why did they want you to be here? Which Grace doesn't know. Of course she doesn't know. She doesn't know why they want her to be here, but I guess Leon didn't know that she didn't know. But now he knows that she didn't know. Yeah. So as Gideon is looking at them with his night vision goggles, and I don't know how he got here. I guess he got here from the ceiling the same way that the monster got here. As he's looking at them, Leon gives Grace the Requiem, which should be completely empty of all ammo at this point. But cutscene usages of guns usually don't count towards the gameplay. Like, if you have 15 bullets before a cutscene, and in the cutscene they shoot at a guy, you'll probably leave the cutscene with 15 bullets still in the gun. It's kind of this unwritten rule of video game cutscenes that whenever the character shoots someone in the story, that does not actually cost you any ammo. So if you kept all 5 bullets in your Magnum revolver, you should still have all 5 bullets at this point. Shouldn't you? Because that's how the unwritten rule of these things works. But the gate closes, and now Leon and Grace are completely separated from each other. And Gideon reveals himself to Leon and is all like, "It is so nice to finally meet you, Mr. Leon person." Leon tries to shoot Gideon. However, I guess he's just too fast for Leon, the super action super dude. So he just kind of knocks the gun away and grabs Leon by the throat, because that's the only way that he knows of dealing with people, I suppose. And he checks out Leon's rotting skin because of the, or rather darkening skin. He checks out Leon's darkening skin on his neck and is like, "Aha, you look like all of the others." Implies that there are other people who have gotten this condition that Leon has gotten on his skin. But anyway, he chokes Leon and makes him pass out, because again, that's the only way he knows how to make someone pass out. And we then cut back to Grace, who is like, "Oh man, I sure hope that Leon is okay. Sure hope he's doing all right." And she checks out her big, massive new gun. And once we're given back the gameplay, we see that the Requiem only has one bullet in it. This happens no matter how many times you use the Requiem up until this point. You could use it all 5 times. You could use all 5 bullets that you've had up to this point, and it will still have 1 bullet in it when you're here. You could use it no times, and it will still have only 1 bullet when you get to this point in the game. Why do I think that that is such a big deal? Maybe because this is a survival horror game, a series where you are supposed to build up your resources and spend them wisely so that you can use them later. And because I thought, well, maybe if I don't use my ammo now, then when a boss comes around later on, then I can use my super awesome magnum ammo. But no, they either steal the ammo that you should have had at this point, or they reward you for using all of your ammo up by giving you an extra bullet. Which, just all of this is very antithetical to what a survival horror game is supposed to be. A game where you wisely use your resources in order to defeat the situation that you have found yourself in. So, I am highly disappointed. Requiem, Resident Evil Requiem, that's the name of the game. It's not called Resident Evil 9, even though it's the 9th one in the series. It's called Resident Evil Requiem. I don't know why. I don't know why it's not called 9, that is. So, you start over here with your big, huge, massive, huge gun with only 1 stinking bullet in it, and you go downstairs, which takes you over here, and you can find this, the big massive exit, which is the back door of this facility, and it is locked. And when Grace comes up to this and you push the button to inspect it, she says, and I quote, "It looks like it leads outside." And the thing is, this door, it has windows all around it. You can see the rain falling on the windows, and I'm just like, Grace, kindly shut your stupid mouth. I can see that this door leads outside, Grace. And at this point, I would like to bring up that Grace very often just spouts some random inane nonsense that you could just figure out on your own. Like, whenever she's running from the monster, she finds it necessary to say, "Oh no, please don't come after me, monster." And I'm just like, Grace, shut up. The monster is blind. She can hear you. She may not be able to see you, but she can hear you. She just has very bad survival instincts. But Grace will sometimes just say the most obvious thing you could possibly think, And then people will kind of just praise that online because, oh, look, the character said something that I was thinking at the same point in the gameplay. But the thing is, what if you weren't thinking that? What if you were thinking something completely different, and then the game was like, you should be thinking this thing because Grace is thinking this thing. So why aren't you thinking it? Why aren't you thinking it? And sometimes Grace will just breathe very heavily. She will often just breathe very heavily into your ears while you're playing because she's so scared. She just has to gasp at everything. And whenever she's out of breath, she breathes right in your ear. And I'm just like, man, could you be quiet for one moment, Grace? Please give me some peace and quiet around these parts. I'm trying to escape these zombies and do it quietly. But anyway, enough rambling for now. For now, I will ramble later. That is a promise, sir or madam. If you walk down these stairs, you can see that these big doors over here are locked, and there's not really much to find in this whole massive, huge area, which I'm just like, man, there's such a big waste of space in this game. But anyway, you can find a map on the wall over here, but it doesn't, even though it is this big map over here, it doesn't actually give you a map like you would expect it to. It just gives you nothing. And I'm just like, well, why is there a huge map on the wall if it doesn't give you a map? But you go to you can try to go into Leon's area where he was earlier, but that's locked too. So you go to the one door you can actually go into, and you can find a typewriter where you can save the game, and an item box where you can store any items that you don't need right now. And a coin over here, but we don't need to get into where all the random little items are. The next place to go is into this room, which has two very high-tech looking prison cells with big locks on the doors that are like, you need a level 3 wristband in order to get in here, and we don't have that, so I guess we won't be getting in there. But a cutscene plays once you enter. Grace turns on the lights in this dark room, and what does she find but a body on the floor in a massive, huge pile of blood? Which means that he is completely dead, correct? Because this amount of blood is huge and also massive. Which means that you should have died if you had bled out that much. But in the cell, she finds a little girl who is in the cell on a bed. She's sitting on a bed in the cell even. There is a second cell, however it's empty, and there are holes like in the wall and in the ceiling, so I think you can guess that the big monster girl from before was in there. And the little girl who is in the cell on the right, she is reading a book in Braille, and she has cataracts in her eyes. And when Grace sees this, she says, "Are you blind?" Which is just like, man, you gave us 2 hints that she was blind. You didn't have to make the character literally spell it out for us that she's blind. Are you blind? Thanks, Grace, with your silly, inane things that you always say. But anyway, Grace is like, "Why are you in there?" And the little girl responds with, "Everyone is gone." That's not an answer. What are you talking about, little girl? I gave you a very different question to the one that you answered. Whatever question you even answered. I don't know what you're saying. As Grace is talking to the little girl, the dead man on the floor who is completely dead awakens and is like, "You gotta get away from her." And then he actually dies for real this time. And I'm just like, what? Why? Why did he get up? Why did they find it necessary to make him be dead and then get up just for enough time for Grace to hear him say, "You gotta get away from that little girl." And this kind of implies that the little girl, much like the one who was in the other cell, is also a monster of some kind. Which we will see much later could possibly be a real possibility. Possibly. But after the guy dies, Grace kind of loots his corpse. She takes his key card, which allows access to the west wing of the facility, and she takes his flashlight. And after the cutscene where Grace is attacked by the monster girl, she just kind of loses the lighter for some reason. It's never brought up as to where the lighter went. I guess it's just kind of gone now. Maybe when the monster smashed her against the wall, the lighter just fell out of her pocket or something, but who knows? It's gone. It disappeared somehow. It's gone, and we have a flashlight. So isn't that nice and nifty? You can check the bloodstain on the ground, but it doesn't really actually do anything, at least not right now. But I think that right now would be a good time to tell you about the inventory system. At least Grace's inventory system. This is kind of what it looks like. You see, it's Grace's, so I put her name there. She has 8 spots for inventory items, and she can only hold 1 item in each spot, being a gun, or a stack of ammo, or a bottle, or a puzzle item. And some items can stack, and some items cannot. Some things that can stack are bullets, magnum rounds. You can stack up to 50 bullets, and I'm not sure how many magnum rounds you can actually stack, because I have never reached the limit. You can hold up to 5 bottles in 1 inventory space. I don't know how that makes any sense. Bottles are huge. But you can hold 3 of the med injectors, which heal you from 0 to 100% health. So they're kind of important. You can also stack coins seemingly infinitely, just like the magnum rounds. Some things that cannot stack are any puzzle items that you find, one of them being this key card that you just got. And you cannot stack herbs, or as some silly people say, herbs. You cannot stack scrap metal, which I mean, scrap metal is about this big. And bottles are about this big. You can stack 5 bottles, but you can only stack 1 scrap metal. Stupid Grace. But you can also only stack... You cannot stack rare scrap metal, or guns, or charms, or the blood collector. What is the blood collector? Who knows? Who knows what it is? There are other things in the inventory, but we'll get to those later. Just know that this shows you what item you have equipped, or rather what weapon you have equipped. This shows you your equipped knife. This shows you your flashlight. And this shows you your health status, which we will get into before too long. One thing about the inventory is that you can store maps and documents in there, and those do not take up any space, which I find is odd, that you can just carry an entire map with you and 75 documents and just never need any space for any of those things. And another thing is that you can craft certain items, but currently you can only craft mixed herbs by putting like 2 or 3 herbs together, which heal you for more health, because herbs in this series are kind of magical, or at least green herbs are, and red herbs and yellow and blue, but in this game they only have green herbs because the gameplay is very thin. If you mix herbs together, then the healing potency of them increases. So if you stack like 2 or 3 herbs into one mixed herb, then you're gonna heal like your whole health bar pretty much. But you can also create scrap metal from knives that you find, or you can make knives out of scrap metal that you find. And that's all that you can make right now. You can make more later, but not right now. So you go out of this place, you go over here and you unlock the West Wing. I don't know why I spelt East Wing that way. I just wrote one too many E's and I just kept going. So you come into the West Wing. This door is currently locked from the other side. So you're forced to go this way. That door is locked. Then you go this way, and this way needs a level 1 security band. So you can't go that way either. You're forced to go into the kitchen, where you see a chef zombie. He's a huge enemy, which means all of the getting you stuck that the monster girl did before, like in a corner or something, he can also do that with his massive huge body. But he carries a huge knife on him, but he has not seen you yet, so he will not use it on you yet. But I find that it's kind of odd that a zombie would try to knife you to death instead of trying to bite you to death, but to each their own. One way to get around him is to stealth your way through. Like, he will try to fix some food over here, because zombies in this game have memories from their past lives, which when I first heard of that concept, I was like, oh, that's like Luigi's Mansion. Like, you're going through this big fancy building, and every now and then you find an enemy who is like a ghost of their former selves. That's Luigi's Mansion, but they put it in Resident Evil. Now, I'm not disparaging Resident Evil for wanting to do that concept. I'm just like, man, Luigi's Mansion was a fun game. But he will try to fix food over here, and if you want, you can push this pot that's over here all the way over here. But he will occasionally go to this table for more meat, so you then have to hide and then go back to the pot and push the pot some more until you go through this door. But if you're fast enough, then you can just push the pot the entire way in one go and then be out of there forever. Another way of dealing with this is the way that I did it, which is I shot him with my only magnum round that I had at this point in the game, because I'm the type of guy who actually confronts the zombies who is before himself and tries to defeat all of them when he finds them. But he did not die to that magnum round, sadly, so I just kind of had to run past him. I would not recommend using your only magnum round on him at this point in the game, but you can do that. And then he will have lower health for later, and then you can get some goodies, but we'll get into all of that. For now, another way that you can go by him is you can literally just sneak behind him. You don't have to mess with the pot at all. You can just kind of run around him and go through the door that way. There are multiple ways of dealing with him, so that's kind of neat. Over here, there is a light switch zombie who tries to turn off every light switch he sees. And there are 3 light switches in this hall, so if you want to, you can turn on these lights and kind of lure him over here and hide behind here, and then once he's over here, you can run past him. So I think that's kind of a neat idea. Let's hope that there are many variations on this idea and that they use it multiple different times in increasingly difficult ways. But you can optionally find a maid zombie who is cleaning the mirrors, but her hands are all bloody, so she's getting blood on all the mirrors. Oh no! This zombie is very odd because whenever she attacks you, she just kind of does this on your face, like scrubs it up and down. I guess she's scratching your face, but it just looks very odd when you actually see it in gameplay. And another thing that's odd is that she has a very, very long cooldown to her next attack. Cooldown meaning she has to wait a very long time before she can attack you again for some reason. And another thing is that she always has this very weird smile on, which I guess is creepy, but I think that it's more goofy than creepy. But that's just my opinion. And opinions are like onions. They stink. But after you deal with the light switch zombie by running past him, you can also just try to run past him and not deal with the light switches, but it's highly likely that he'll grab you if you do that. And if you're grabbed by a zombie, for some reason that hurts you, even if you're not bitten by the zombie. But once you're past him, you can unlock this door over here. So now you can make a whole loop all around this area. Yay! You run in here, you find a gun on the ground, and it's empty. You get no bullets. Sir, good day to you. And oh no, a knife zombie crawls out from under the table, and there's zombies eating, I guess, gore on the table. And the knife zombies, what they do is they just kind of try to stab you with their knives. They slash and try to stab at you. So you run away, you go in here, and you probably go in here. And if you do, you find a knife and some ammo, which is only 2 bullets. But if you use the knife and the ammo on that knife zombie that's coming after you, then you can pretty easily dispatch it. And I think that this is a good time to tell you how guns do in this game. Guns in this game are not very special. They're more just serviceable than anything. You pull the trigger, the gun shoots the enemy. And if you shoot the enemy in the head, then it deals more damage, because I guess the head is harder to hit, and it makes them stagger more. But something else that does more damage and makes them stagger more is the crosshair of the gun. And when you start off aiming, the crosshair is all separated like this. But if you wait a while, then the crosshair will go into the center and be more closed in like this. And that works on the Requiem too. That's what the Requiem crosshair looks like. But when the crosshair is in the center, then your gun deals more damage and it does more stagger damage, which just means that the enemy has a higher likelihood of staggering when you shoot them. And you can also knife enemies. You can slash at them with your knife, and that sure is a knife. That sure is knife right there. You know, instead of nice, it's knife. There are 2 kinds of knives in this game. One being the makeshift knife, and one being the hunting knife. I think that there's only like 1 or 2 hunting knives, but they act the exact same and deal the same amount of damage. And they have a durability bar, so the knife will eventually break. And I'm just like, man, you could have done this with Leon, but you chose not to, game developers. Another thing you can do with knives is once a zombie grabs you, you can push the knife button in order to get away from them. However, the knife stays in the zombie until you kill the zombie. So if you want that knife back, you're gonna have to do some shooting, you little Texan there. You can also shoot a zombie in the legs in order to get them to stumble and allow you to shove them onto the ground, because Grace can only shove zombies. She can't do big melee kicks to deal tons of damage to them like Leon can. She can just shove them on the ground, which I don't think does any damage, but what do I know? One thing that is highly annoying about guns is that reloading the gun can be interrupted by many different things, and by interrupted I mean the reload can be cancelled, meaning that you don't actually reload the gun. Now, This would be annoying if just a couple of things stopped you from being able to reload the gun, but allow me to list a few of them out to you. The reload can be interrupted by collecting items, opening doors, switching weapons, breaking boxes and vases, saving, using item boxes, aiming the gun, and so on. So you hit the reload button and then you aim the gun and you're like, wait a minute, why do I have 0 bullets? And it's because you just interrupted the reload animation by aiming the gun. And you hit the reload button and maybe you swap to a different weapon and then you're like, I'll swap back to that other weapon and it's out of ammo. And it's like, well, wait a minute, why didn't I reload this weapon? Because when you swapped weapons before, that canceled the reload. And maybe you're trying to reload when you're dealing with puzzle elements, but then you interrupt the reload because you interacted with the puzzle element. Or maybe you press the X button to kick open a box while you're reloading, but the reload doesn't happen because the box animation was prioritized over the reloading animation. And this is highly, highly terrible for gameplay. I was very annoyed by this in some of the other modern Resident Evil games, but in this game it just irks me a lot more for some reason. Maybe because the Requiem has a 3-second startup to its reload animation, which means you hit the reload button on the Requiem, and then you wait 3 seconds, and then she actually starts to reload the gun. And at any point during those 3 seconds, your reload can be interrupted by a number of things that you can do with the environment. So I'm annoyed is what I'm saying. While you are shooting zombies with your gun, because that's what you use to shoot things with, sometimes its eye can like pop out of its socket, which and just kind of dangle there by its eye wires, and I just find that to be very goofy because you're looking at this thing that's trying to kill you, meanwhile its eye is just dangling all over the place. I find it more to be goofy than I find it to be scary, and for some reason they do that a lot with these zombies, at least when you shoot them in the eye. Another thing about guns is that they can sway like back and forth a little bit, so aiming at the zombies is a little tougher, but also these zombies can sway back and forth their heads while they're coming at you. So this makes aiming more of a challenge in the game, and I am welcome to this challenge in particular. And before we get off of this discussion of how the weapons work, when your knife is low on durability, it can break and be lost forever. However, you can also turn it into scrap when it gets low on durability, and then make it into a new knife if you have 2 scrap. However, scrap only stacks once, as in it's not stackable, and there are much better uses for scrap later on in the game, so we will get to that later on. But anyway, you just either kill the zombie or you run away from it, and you can find this valve door over here, this door with a huge valve on it. And if you try to use it, the valve breaks off and it's like, oh no, I can't get in there. What am I gonna do? So you'll just have to come back here later. But so the correct way to go, the way that they actually want you to go is upstairs. But oh no, there's a zombie there. So you go back over here and look, there's a crate over there. You break open the crate, and this crate, as far as I know, will always have 8 or 9 bullets inside of it. A good amount of the crates, at least while you're playing as Leon, are randomized as to what they have in there, but I think the Grace crates always have the same items in there, at least when she opens them up. But we'll get into more of that later on. So anyway, you can shoot this zombie, you can try to run past it, but one thing I'd like to compliment about this game is that this is actually a neat little setup here. You have this zombie that's trying to chase you over here, and this zombie that you can find over here. And either way, you're kind of led into the filing room. That is, unless you find this ammo and then deal with one of the zombies and run by, but you're kind of led into the filing room either way, because you run away from this zombie, you run away from that zombie, and where do you go? You go in here, where you find a knife and some ammo. So either way, you're going to learn how to shoot things in around this area of the game. And I just think that it's kind of neat how it tutorializes you without tutorializing you. Then again, it will also just prompt you on screen for what buttons to press. So it's half an invisible tutorial, half a very obvious tutorial that just tells you what to do. But hey, compliments where they're due. Anyway, you go up the stairs and you go to the second floor. You can go up to the third floor at this point, but there's nothing for Grace to do there. At least at this point in time. Maybe there's something there for her later, or maybe there's literally nothing at any point ever. But you go to the second floor, which is all the way over here, if I can get it on screen, plus myself. And then you find that there's another locked door here, but from the other side. So it's like that other one downstairs where you have to get to the other side in order to unlock it and all that. And then you find the bar and lounge. And what's in here? There's 3 zombies. One of them is a bottle throwing zombie. It will throw its bottle at you and try to hit you with it. And you can shoot the bottle, but there's no real reason to waste ammo on shooting the bottle when you could just shoot the zombie instead. There's one zombie that appears on this couch when you enter the room, but I find that there's no real way to stealth your way past these guys, unless you just walk from here over to here, just avoiding the challenge, just avoiding the challenge completely. But there's also a singer zombie over here, and what she does is she will hurt you by screeching with her voice, and she can make your ears bleed in order to kill you. Literally, that's how she kills you, by making your ears bleed. But if you're brave enough, like I was, you can calling myself brave, but if you're brave enough, then you can shoot all of these zombies dead at this point in the game. You don't really have too much ammo at this point in the game, but you can find some more ammo over here to help you shoot them all dead. And another thing that can help you shoot them all dead is this gun that you can find, which is the gun that Grace started with in the Rinwood Hotel that had 9 bullets that we never shot. And wouldn't you happen to know it, it still has those 9 bullets that we didn't shoot. However, much like the Requiem always having 1 bullet when Grace gets it, this gun also always has 9 bullets whenever Grace gets it at this point in the game. Even if you completely empty this gun in the Rinwood Hotel, it will still have all 9 bullets inside of it at this point in the game. So I don't know what's going on here. Maybe these zombie people reloaded the gun for you. But just either way, it's another thing that just doesn't require you to use your ammo responsibly in a survival horror game, where wise use of ammo and resources really should be rewarded. Anywho, if you check this gun in your inventory, you can actually see that it is stronger than your starting gun, which means that you will just use this gun instead because it uses the same kind of ammo. So throw away that starting gun because you get this gun now. And one thing that is disappointing about that is that this is the last gun that Grace can get in the entire game. Isn't that sad? We just started to actually play the actual game. We just got past the intro and started to fight some real zombies. And we have all of Grace's guns already on us. She gets no shotguns. She gets no other magnums. She gets no grenade launchers. No flamethrowers. No chainsaws. No submachine guns. She only gets 2 pistols and the Requiem. And she doesn't even have the Requiem for the entire game. So I just think it's very disappointing that Grace only gets pistols and a Magnum revolver. 2 pistols, 1 Magnum revolver for the entire game. There's just very little variety in how Grace can play the game, is what I'm saying. I'm saying it. So you get your gun that always has 9 bullets, and now you can kill everything much more efficiently because you can deal more damage, because this is the higher damaging gun. And if you kill the songstress, then she drops a coin, and there's another coin over here. So we have a good amount of coins at this point in the game. And there's a safe over here, but we do not have the combination for the safe. I wonder where it could be. I know where it is. You don't know where it is, but I know. So now you can go over here, and there's this warped wardrobe thing with a warped door that you just cannot budge open no matter what. You can't open this thing. The wood is too warped on the door. At least that's what Grace says, but Grace is super wimpy, so I don't know if I'd trust what she has to say. Anyway, you can find this little drawer here that is locked, and you, for some reason, need a lockpick to open it. I don't know why you can't just find a regular key, but hey, lockpicks work too, I suppose. So you go in here, and over here you can find a little puzzle box with the button at the back, and you open it up, and you can find a massive jewel, which opens the parlor, where you can actually spend all of your coins and such. And over here you can find a notebook with some pages missing. So I guess we have to do that classic detective novel thing where we have to get a pencil and, you know, scrub it along the paper surface in order to get a code or something off of it. Yeah, that's what you do in mystery games. But over here there's this big puzzle box over here that we'll get to in a moment. We'll get there soonly. So you go into the office, and there's another zombie who throws bottles at you that you can shoot. And on the desk there's a pencil when you happen to have it. And this pencil takes up an entire inventory slot. It is a pencil. It is this big. Why does it take up a whole inventory slot? 1 out of 8 inventory slots. The actual reason is because the puzzle you're about to solve is going to give you a key, one of 3 keys to the back door that we saw earlier, and they want to make sure that you have enough room in your inventory to carry that key with you. So from a game design perspective, I can see why the pencil takes up an entire inventory slot, but it is just very frustrating. So anyway, you go back up here, you scrub the paper with the pencil, and this is an actual mini game that you have to play. She doesn't just do it automatically. You scrub the paper with the pencil, or like rub it across the surface of the paper. And this minigame will not let you exit it until the game is satisfied with how much you have scrubbed the pencil across the paper. And this can mean that the words on the paper are highly clear to you, the player, but the game has not decided that they are clear enough for the game. So it just keeps you trapped in this minigame until the game thinks that the words are clear enough for you to read them. Which is just like, man, this could have used some more playtesting, I feel like. But you get the combination to this puzzle box over here. So you open up this puzzle box, and what you find inside is a cube of quartz with a little moon symbol on it. It is the moon quartz. So you go back over here, and you go under there, and there's another zombie in here. And this zombie, once you down this zombie, like you kill it, and you come back to this area, every single time, at least as far as I've played, this zombie will get back up and try to kill you. So double or even triple tap this zombie if you have to. So you go through here, you unlock this door, and you're back in the main hall. So you exit over here, and then you go down the stairs, which takes you over here. And then you use the quartz on the back door. And we gotta find 2 other quartzes now to get into this back door. And it's like, well, where on earth do I go? But if you remember, we have that jewel that can get us into the parlor. So we go back to the west wing, and then we go all the way to the parlor. We use the jewel on the door, and it opens up. Yay! And the chef is very likely still alive at this point. If you have your 1 magnum round and some ammo, then you can take him out. But I'm just going to assume that we haven't taken him out yet. And he will, like, patrol these halls. So if you need to get away from him, you can do a big circle in order to get away from him and get back to the parlor, which is like, that's the 2nd time in the game so far that they have allowed us to do a big circle around a big monster person in order to get around them. I wonder if that'll happen again, and again, and again. But you get into the parlor, and there's this big roulette table over here, which this is the strangest puzzle in the game. Like, this roulette wheel over here has a chance of landing on 3 different possible numbers. So if you want to play the roulette game, you shoot the number you think it will land on, and if it lands on that number, then you get a coin. What? Why? How does that work, and why does that work that way? and there are an abundance of coins, so wasting your ammo on this table really is not all that advantageous to you at this point in the game. But over here, you can find 4 items hidden behind these boxes that you have to pay coins to get into. One of them is an inventory upgrade that can get you 2 more slots of inventory. And this is the cheapest thing that you can buy, which is insane because inventory is something you desperately need in these games. So you will very likely purchase the inventory upgrade at this point in the game, thus giving you 10 slots of inventory instead of the usual 8. So that's good. Another thing that you can buy is steroids. What steroids will do is they will act as a full heal, and they will give you more health on your health bar, or rather health status. So instead of having a traditional health bar like a lot of games, in this game you have a health status, which for some reason is represented by weird gas clouds of different colored gas, like green and yellow and red gas. And as you can see, it says fine, but the health status can also go down to caution and then to danger, which is like you're about to die, you better heal yourself. And up here you can see how many steroids you've used versus how many other things that you can inject yourself that you've used, that I'm about to talk about in a moment. But I just find it odd that you don't actually have a health bar, but a health status. I mean, Resident Evil 1 had a health status, so I guess they're trying to call back to that. But I just find it kind of odd that that some of the games have a health bar and some have a health status, and they just keep kind of switching between the two depending on which Resident Evil game you're playing at the moment. But with the steroids, you can increase your health, which is not very useful. Because why increase your health when you could increase your gun damage, which is what the third thing that you can buy can do. It can increase the stability of your shots and the damage that your weapons do, and it's called a stabilizer. And you can inject it in your arm. And I'm just like, well, surely damaging your opponents, of which there are plenty, is much more advantageous than having a longer health bar, or rather health status, which you have no idea how much health you actually have. It's just this box that goes from green to red. To each their own, but as for me, I will always choose more damage as opposed to being able to heal more, because there are plenty of heals all across this facility, but there is nothing that can increase your damage like a stabilizer can. But anyway, the third thing that you can buy is a manual that allows you to get 50 more blood inside of the blood collector. What? What is the blood collector, and why can we increase the amount of blood that it can get with just having a manual? And why does the manual take up 0 inventory space? I don't know the answer to any of these questions. But anyway, we'll get into the blood collector before too long. That stinky little thing. If you go over here, you can find an armless corpse. Ah, spooky. And there's an arm under here, and if you lift up the arm, you can get a key card to the east wing, which means that's where we're going next. So you exit, you leave this place and go to the main hall. And then you go across the main hall all the way to the east wing. At the start of the east wing, you can find the third locked drawer. And yes, I do mean third, because back in the west wing, over here, I forgot to mention the first one that you can find. I better start remembering this stuff, or else these videos will be forever long. Anywho, this is the last of the locked drawers in the game. Yes, there are only 3, but because they all have something very, very special hidden behind them. So they didn't, I guess, want to make too many. But anyway, we travel up here to the exam room, and we find a corpse on a table with its chest all cut open, and its organs are not inside of it. At least not right now, they aren't. They may be in the future. But on its wrist, you can see that it's strapped to the table, and I guess Grace can just tell that there's something underneath the strap. And I'm just like, Grace, you have knives. Makeshift knives, but knives nonetheless. You can cut through that strap and see whatever it is that is under the strap that just so happens to catch your interest. Or you could just, remove the strap with your hands like you've done before when you were hanging upside down. But no, she's like, well, I can't just do that way. So we'll get to the actual solution to opening this strap much later. Or at least a little later. I don't know about much later. But over here is another safe. No, we still don't have the safe combinations. Be patient, people. Over here, you can find a new item called the hemolytic injector. Basically, you inject it in a zombie and it makes them explode into just a ton of blood all over the place. Which I guess is why it's called the hemolytic injector. It is tutorialized as a stealth option for stealthily taking down enemies. I guess you sneak up on them, you jab them, and then they explode, and it's all stealthy. But I don't see what's so stealthy about completely exploding your foe. But believe it or not, if you explode your foe, then the other foes do not notice you, even after the foe is exploded. One thing I'd like to mention about the hemolytic injector is that it can be incredibly easy to use. You use it with the attack button, which means if you are trying to knife an enemy, which is also the attack button, you might use the hemolytic injector by mistake. And as we will soon see, it is a little expensive to craft one of these injectors. So having it be so easy to use by mistake is a very bad thing. But anywho, there are 2 zombies in this room that you can deal with or not. And you enter this hallway and there's light switches. That must mean that there's another light switch zombie, and that would be correct. You can turn on this light switch, lead him over here, go over here, and then run past him if you want to. And then you will have run past the final light switch zombie in the entire game. Poor light switch zombie, I hardly knew ye. Just an oddly underused concept for just how many game mechanics go into this one unique kind of zombie, you know? You'd expect them to have used this a little bit more, or in more creative ways than just you turn on the lights and then you run past them. But I'm not a game designer, so who am I to criticize? But you can go into this blood lab and you can find the blood collector. You see, there are buckets, literally buckets, of infected blood, and sometimes zombies drop infected blood, and you can collect the infected blood with the blood collector. And also over here you can find a blood sample, and with the blood sample you can use it in the blood analyzer, and once you have analyzed the blood, you can then craft ammo and hemolytic injectors out of infected blood and scrap. The justification for this in the game is hilarious. You see, in this game, in the lore of this game, apparently blood holds memory, and that means that you can just craft, I guess, just whatever nonsense stuff with blood that you can think of, including bullets. Sure, get your blood and get your scrap together, let's make some ammo. But I can see how it kind of makes sense that you get crafting recipes out of blood if blood holds memory, but blood holding memory does not have anything to do with crafting things out of blood. By the way, this is a brand new concept as of this game in the series. They have never done blood memory before, and I think it is incredibly weird and strange, and I don't know why they did it. Also, you have to solve a puzzle while analyzing the blood in order to get the analysis done, I suppose. And the puzzle is the tile flipping type of puzzle where you like press one tile and the tiles around it flip, or it could be lights go on and off and you have to figure out how to get them all on. It's a very basic puzzle, and here it's so basic that they give you the amount of intended steps to solve it. Like it'll say, you can solve this in 1 step, or you can solve this in 3 steps, and it gives you a reset button too. So they really made this as easy as possible for you to solve, and I'm just not sure why. Maybe they really don't think much of the player. I mean, think of the puzzles we've had so far. One of them was pushing a button on the back of a box to get an item, and another one was the puzzle forcing you to write the words clear enough for you to read them, and then inputting the correct sequence of button commands into the puzzle box. These puzzles are not complex at all so far. And another thing is the blood collector, it takes forever to collect blood. It takes literally like 5 to 15 seconds every single time you collect blood in the game, and there are dozens upon dozens of blood pools that you can draw from across the game, because you're killing zombies almost every room here. So there's gonna be blood piles everywhere. So taking like 5 to 15 seconds just for one blood pile, it's like, why? You're just making it take longer for no reason and hurting the replayability of the game, which I don't like. I don't like that one bit. Also, the choice between crafting bullets and crafting an instant kill hemolytic injector thing for the zombies is a no-brainer for me, because on average it takes about 2 to 6 bullets to kill the average zombie if you're getting headshots every single time. Meanwhile, the hemolytic injector, it costs 60 blood to create. Bullets cost 40 blood to create, and they give you 8 bullets, so you could potentially kill 2 zombies with the bullets that you create, whereas you are guaranteed to only be able to kill 1 with the hemolytic injector. So I will always choose to make the bullets. Because that is how math works, and math is your friend. Anywho, you go back into the hall, you go down over here, and there's this room that's lit with like a red light, and that looks cool. And then you go down this hall, and oh no, 3 zombies spawn. You get a guy with a huge bone saw in his hands, you get a guy with a knife, and you get like a regular zombie also. And they just spawn in that hall, and you have to either you either have to stealth your way past, or you shoot them, and if you're me, you're shooting them even though you don't have the ammo to do it, probably. Because I'm a shooty person. But if you make it past them in any way that you want to, you can come in here, and there's 2 more zombies. One of them is blind. A blind zombie with like that thing that a blood bag hangs off of in his hands. And his head is like covered in a wrap, so that's how he's blind. He's not actually blind, his eyes are just wrapped up. But you can throw a bottle at the other zombie, the maid zombie, and he will attack it. However, I find that this is very hard to actually get to work. I tried this twice, and I only got it to work once, so I don't know, maybe if I had more testing with it, then it would work more. But there are only like 2 of these blind zombies in the game, so it's just better to shoot the zombies. You don't have to learn these weird bottle throwing mechanics where one zombie can hit another one, because you're better to just learn the shooting mechanics. Because that's, you will always have a gun on you. You will not always have bottles on you. So you might as well just shoot the things. That's what I think, at least. But you can open this door. Or rather, unlock this door. And look at that, we now have a loop. A circle, if you will. I sure hope no big monsters come in here so we can circle around them. It's not like these game developers have any patterns to them. But anyway, there was a door up here, but that's a level 2 security door, and we don't even have level 1 yet. So we've got to go down here and get up these stairs. Before I forget to mention it, which I'm gonna say a lot of times probably in the future, but before I forget to mention it, that blind zombie with the blood bag holder thing, the pole that holds the blood bag on it, he can drop a blood bag. Blood bags do not stack in your inventory because of course they don't. But you can use them on your blood collector in order to get blood into your blood collector. So blood bags have been mentioned. So we are up here now. Don't worry about that stuff over there. We're not over there yet. Just worry about this stuff over here. And you can run over here and find the level 1 security wristband. Finally! Yeah! But just as you do, oh no, a big huge monster guy comes out. And this monster guy is, to say the least, a very, very fat person. Because he literally takes up the entire hallway with his body, and his name is literally Chunk. So the game developers did not have much respect for the larger people in their audience. But anyway, you go over here and, oh look, there's a typewriter, which means you can save. And you can go in here to the lead researcher's office and you can find a puzzle box. But oh no, you can't get into it because there's a massive lock. And you can find a document that says, I misplaced the key. Oh no, if you really need to get into that puzzle box, you better get that corrosive substance that's over here. And you better melt the lock. And I'm just like, well, wait a minute. If you pour a corrosive substance on here, how do you know it won't just seep through the floor and cause damage to the whole office? These scientists are not very intelligent, I'll have you know. As with the other puzzle box, this one also needs a code to get into it. And the code is usually just like a different combination of sun and star and moon symbols. But you can find the code hidden across different pictures in this office, which is actually the most complex puzzle in the game so far. You need to find a whole 2 different pictures. Find the 2 different pieces of code on the pictures, and then put the pieces of code together. It's actually kind of a puzzle. It's like a level 2 or 3 difficulty puzzle out of 10, but it's a puzzle. And thank goodness we actually have at least one puzzle in this game about solving puzzles and making your way past enemies. But anyway, we cannot get past Chunk right now. But what we can do is go back downstairs. Chunk will try to chase you throughout these hallways, but as I've noted before, you have a massive circle around here that you can take to get around Chunk, which is the 3rd time so far that they have given us such a massive circle to get around a, like, mini-boss type enemy. I wonder if this will happen again later in the game. Because these guys they keep copying and pasting the same exact puzzles and gameplay mechanics again and again and again throughout all their games. But we'll get to more of that later. For now, because we have the level 1 security band, we can now get into here and get another blood sample. I believe this blood sample allows you to craft your own steroids and stabilizers. However, you need an empty injector to craft them, but they cost like 120 and 130 blood respectively, and as you already know, I am quite a fan of getting more damage out of my weapons, so I'm gonna craft those stabilizers every single time. Especially because there are only 3 empty injectors in the entire game. Which means that you can only get either one of your statuses up to +4, like +4 stabilizers, or you can like do a couple of steroids or a couple of stabilizers, like choose your own pathway sort of thing. And over in this closet you can find yet another blood sample that you can analyze, and with this you can craft, I believe, magnum rounds and med injectors. However, med injectors you would think would need an empty injector in order for you to make them, but no, I guess you just make those out of thin air. And then you just toss the med injector away once it's empty. But what if you kept the empty medical injector once it was empty, so that you could then use the empty injector to make more steroids and more stabilizers? These game developers did not think about the logic of their game at all. You can also find a lockpick around here, I believe, and lockpicks, as I may have spoiled before, can open these drawers. And inside the drawer is a rare metal, and rare metal can be used to make magnum rounds. And now we can kill Chunk pretty safely, I believe. So killing Chunk, you can do it in 2 different ways. You can kill him with either 3 hemolytic injectors or with 3 magnum rounds and maybe a couple of regular bullets. But the thing is, you can only make magnum rounds in sets of 2, and it costs 80 blood to make 2 magnum rounds, which if you do your math, it costs 120 blood to create 3 magnum rounds, which is what you need to kill Chunk. And it takes 180 blood to create 3 hemolytic injectors, which you could also use to kill Chunk. So, why would you not use the more cost-effective method of making 3 magnum rounds to kill Chunk? Mathematically, it is the only way to go. Even if it costs you 4 magnum rounds, that's still 20 less blood that you're using. So just any way about it, magnum rounds is the way to go here. And once you have defeated Chunk, which by the way, you don't actually need to defeat him, it's just nice to have him out of the way. But once you have defeated Chunk, he drops an I Spy charm, which is a little skull charm. And the way that charms work is you hold them in your inventory and they just automatically give you some sort of buff to whatever you've got going on already. So the I Spy charm, it protects you from attacks that would normally cause you to die. So let's say that you're on danger health, which is the lowest health status that you can have. The I Spy charm will protect you from the next attack, which should kill you. Or at least it will some of the time. It says that it will save you some of the time from these attacks, which it does not give you a percentage of how much of the time that is, which is frustrating, but I guess it's better than nothing. Another thing I might mention about Chunk is you might want to keep him around because if he runs into zombies, he can damage them and potentially kill them outright. So he might be more useful to you alive than dead. And another thing to mention is, back up here, right before Chunk appears on screen for the first time, it is entirely possible for you to go too far forward, pick up the wristband, and the music for Chunk triggers, which is like this action music or something, and it triggers while you're picking up the wristband. So you see the wristband in this, like, you got this item screen, meanwhile this heavy action music is playing, and it's just like, oh, I suppose I'm supposed to be scared by something, so whenever I get out of this menu, I suppose something exciting will happen, and then Chunk comes after you. It's just a goofy little thing, but whatever. Over here, I believe we can find the safe code to the exam room safe. However, the only thing that is in that safe is 3 antique coins. And at this point in the game, you have more than enough antique coins to get almost everything in the parlor. So it's just like, man, I really didn't need more antique coins. I wanted something like ammo or some rare metal so I could make more of the magnum ammo, or maybe even another gun. I could have used another gun, or at least another gun type. But no, you just get more coins. And I remain disappointed. So you go on your way this way, and you enter this room full of 4 zombies. One of them is a singing zombie. One of them is a bone saw zombie. One is a knife zombie, and one is a syringe zombie. However, syringes pretty much act like knives either way, and you can't collect them, by the way. One thing that I am disappointed by in this game is that there is a surprising lack of medical instruments that you can use as weaponry, despite the game taking place in a care clinic. Like, imagine if your makeshift knives, which, by the way, they just look like half of a pair of scissors. So imagine if your makeshift knives instead were scalpels. I think that that would have lent to the location that we are at. But anywho, something about this encounter. You might think that you would be able to stealth your way in here because 3 of the zombies are sleeping on the ground waiting for the singer to wake them up. However, the singer, no matter what, will always see you as you enter the room and sing, waking up all the zombies so that they come after you. I find this highly disappointing, especially because we were given the hemolytic injectors not too long ago. So I'm like, well, this could have been a stealth section where if you play your cards right, you could kill the singer and with maybe just a hemolytic injector. Because she's like she's more of a normal zombie, but with higher health than a normal zombie. So I guess lower than a mini boss, but like, let's say more of a mid-range enemy. Like zombies are low-range enemies, and Singer is mid-range enemy. So it's just very disappointing from a gameplay perspective, because it's like, oh look, she saw you no matter what you did. And also, whenever the singers sing, they can break objects around them, including like windows or vases, and that makes sense, that I'm fine with. But they can also break wooden boxes with their voice. I just think that that gives off a lack of care for how things interact with each other, because they could have put, instead of putting 2 boxes here, they could have put 2 vases here and have her sing and her voice breaks the vases, because that would make sense. But no, wooden boxes, because they just don't care enough. These stinking game developers. But anyway, you make it past all the zombies in whatever way you want to, and you get over here and you find the bottle of corrosive. Corrosive what, you might ask? They don't tell you. It's just generic corrosive whatever it is. It's not acid, it's not sulfuric acid, it's not whatever third type of acid, it's just corrosive. Which I find is odd. Like, they didn't take the time to look up any corrosive substances for this game that took 5 years to make, at the very least, because that's when Resident Evil 8 came out, is 5 years before this game. You disappoint me greatly, game developers, but I think you know that already. But anyway, you go back here, you enter the room, and what's this? A cutscene plays? No way! I can't believe this! So in this cutscene, Gideon is in the office and he's looking at something. I don't know what he's looking at, but he said, Grace aims her gun at him, and he's all like, well, I'm not here to harm you, Grace. And he says, I liberated you, Grace, which, in the villain's plans, that line makes 0 sense at all. Essentially, the villains want to use Grace as a key to open this bigger puzzle box thing way later in the game, so saying that he liberated her is not accurate at all to what his actual intentions with her are. And yes, I am being very particular with his choice of words, sir or madam. Anyway, he finally introduces himself to Grace because he did not do so beforehand. And then he's all like, Grace, it took me such a long time to find you, missy. And you are such a unique, highly unique person, Grace. And he says that Elpis can be set free through you. Now, you might ask yourself, what is Elpis? So, this is something that's actually in Greek mythology. Elpis was a spirit of hope that was left in Pandora's box after the evil spirits were released from it. So, Elpis has something to do with hope. You'll understand why I said it like that much later on. He then says that his master made Grace who she is, and by his master I would assume he means Spencer, being the man who founded Umbrella, and he worked for Umbrella, so I guess his master would be Spencer. And then some alarms go off, and he says, Phase 2 is about to begin, whatever that means. What it literally means is that there will be stronger zombies around, but I guess that's what he means by it. The zombies are mutating. He then very creepily says, "Want to see what's under the hood?" Referring to the mask he has on over his eyes that let him see in the dark. And then Grace kind of runs out of the room, blocks the door with the chair, and then runs over here, opens the door, and then runs over here and hides behind this thing. And I think that this is strangely clever for Grace. Like, she's for once not acting like a complete moron. Instead, she's actually being like, I can trick him by thinking that I ran that way, but I can actually run this way. It's like two of her neurons finally fired in that brain of hers. After prattling on with all that inane dialogue, she finally had a good thought. One that I might have in this situation. And that's not the reason why it's good. I just think it's good regardless. But anyway, Gideon then makes it past the door that was blocked with the chair and goes over here and yells Grace's name. Because he's a scary villain man. And she's quaking in her boots over here. But he just very easily gets tricked by the open door and keeps walking this way. And Grace comes out of hiding. And the thing about this is we've already seen that he has hidden cameras pretty much all over the place. So how on earth is he able to be tricked by this? Shouldn't he just look at his cameras and see where Grace is? I mean, sure, maybe his cameras are only in one part of the building, and maybe he can or can't get there right now, but go over there, see where Grace is, and then go kidnap her by choking her into a knockout state like you've done twice now. So now we're given the reins of the gameplay again, so now we can melt the lock. And something that's a little unintuitive about these pictures that you get these puzzle solutions from, these halves of the puzzle solution from, is you can look at these in your inventory under the Documents tab. However, you cannot zoom in on these pictures while looking at them in the Documents tab, but you can zoom in on them while looking at them in the actual environment, like pushing X on them to look at them. And I'm just like, well, wait a minute, if I can zoom in on the actual physical picture by picking it up, then how come I can't zoom in on the picture when it's in my inventory? Because when you go up to a puzzle box, it allows you to open your documents to look at different puzzle solutions that are inside, that could be inside of your documents. So to have it be that they want you to look at your pictures documents at the puzzle box, but not be able to zoom in on them at the puzzle box where you're actually supposed to use them, it's just weird. It's just a little unintuitive, and I don't know what they were thinking. But anyway, you open up the puzzle box, you get another quartz cube thing, and you also get a little thing with documents in it that one of them tells you the solution to open an organ transport box, which is all the way across the map from here, but we'll get to that soon. And the other document reveals some of the villains' plans to control memories and will of the people using the T virus, zombie virus, across the world. Man, this game could have been so much smaller scope and so much more interesting, and not just world domination and mind control through blood and zombie viruses. What are we doing here, man? But enough about that. We go all the way back to the main hall, and you can use your quartz up on this door, and because you have the blood collector now, you can see different spots of blood on across the map if you open up your map in-game, and one of them is in here. So you might choose to go in here, and if you do, then you get an extra little cutscene with the little girl who's in the cell. Grace is all like, "Hey little girl, how you doing? Are you fine?" And the girl is like, "Well, that medicine sure made our eyes go bad." So I guess the blindness is medically induced for some reason. Maybe on purpose, maybe not. We don't really know. And Grace is all like, "So there was someone in there in that other cell?" And I'm just like, Grace, there's a second cell for a reason. Yes, there was someone else in there. There's holes in the cell, Grace. Someone broke out of there somehow. So yes, Grace, there was another person in that other cell. But anyway, the little girl gives the name of the monster girl we saw earlier, being Marie, and says that she disappeared. She also says that she's happy that it wasn't her that turned into a monster person, and she wonders if that's a bad thing, that she's happy about that. But Grace is very clearly she just very clearly does not know what to say to that. So she's just like, I'm just gonna go right now. I'm gonna go keep exploring things. And I think that I might do that too in that situation. So this is one of those rare instances where Grace actually acts like a real person, like me, the player. So we're going back to the West Wing, and at this point in the game, we should have plenty of resources to pretty much kill anything that's in our path. At least on normal mode. I'm talking about normal mode and hard mode, because I've been playing on hard mode recently. So at this point, we should be able to kill the chef that's been wandering around these halls pretty confidently. And we could do this with ammo, or we could do this with one hemolytic injector if we somehow get behind him. And whichever way you do it, you take his pantry key, because he explodes and then he gives you a pantry key. Explodes if you give him the hemolytic injector, that is. And then you can go into the pantry, and there's another one of those warped dresser things that we saw earlier. But more importantly, there is a charm over here. That is the stake out, take out charm. It looks like a Chinese food box. And what it does is it gives your knives, like, it makes them longer lasting, makes them higher damaging, which to me is literally useless. All I do with the knives most of the time is get away from zombies who are trying to bite me, or I turn them into scrap to make more bullets to shoot more guns. Shoot more guns with my bullets. But anywho, now we can go over here, and there's suddenly another zombie. A zombie just spawned in over here when we weren't looking, I suppose. But once we deal with him, we can finally get past this level 1 gate, and we can go in here to the custodian's office, if I can move my fingers. And for some reason, there is a save station in here with an item box, which is the only other save station with an item box in it in the entire care clinic. And I'm just like, well, it's odd that there's only one other room with a save station and an item box, but it's doubly odd that this is so close to the other item box, which is literally just like a couple of steps off screen here, off of this map. And pretty much the only reason that this is over here is because if we go down into the garage, which is over here, there's going to be something that could kill us, which means we might want to get items out of the item box. And so this is really just here for convenience, I feel like. And I also feel like we really just did not need this here. Like, this place is very, very small. So I could have just done the extra steps if I wanted to get rid of a couple of items and take some more bullets with me. But I guess thanks for the extra item box. That is really close to the other item box, game developers. But over here you can find a wrench, which would be really good for opening that door up there, but we're not there yet. We're down here right now. So we go down and into the garage, which is over here. As you can see, the garage is kind of large, but a lot of that room is just space that you can't actually go into, as seen with all of these black lines all around. You can go in here, but only after something special happens, so we'll get to that in a moment. You go all the way over here, you find an organ transport box in this like freezer truck, and you can open it with that puzzle solution we found in that one bigger puzzle box. And once you do, you find an artificial heart, I believe. Or rather, no, this one's the artificial lungs. And once you get the lungs, you can go back here, and I believe up to this point, and then suddenly a massive bulldozer just crashes through the wall and tries to kill you. This is a reference to Resident Evil 4, where a very similar thing happens, and you have to shoot the guy who's in the bulldozer type thing that's coming after you. But the thing is, in that game, they're pretty much trying to kill you every step of the way. Right here, Gideon is trying to capture you so that you don't get killed. So this zombie is either acting through Gideon, but doing things that he does not want the zombie to do, or the zombie is acting of his own volition, and he was just waiting in the dark over here for Grace to get the organs so that he could drive through the wall and then try to crush Grace against this wall over here. Either way, it don't make one lick of sense. That's what I'm saying, and that's what I'm sticking to. But you can shoot the guy in the bulldozer, and if you do, then the bulldozer for some reason explodes and just stops working and stops coming after you. And then you can crawl your way out of the bulldozer, and I'm just at this point, I'm like, what on earth, what are we doing here? What is this? What was any of that? What was that? It didn't make any sense. This isn't an action part of the game. This is just a regular Grace segment with some action thing thrown in there. Just a reference to Resident Evil 4 for no reason. That said, now you can get past this truck because the bulldozer moved it and you can find some ammo, but who cares? Who cares about any of that? We have tons of ammo. We have hundreds of bullets at this point. If not dozens. We probably just have dozens, but even dozens is plenty. But we go back up here, and now we can go up here and up the stairs into floor 2. We're now over here, and we could try to go up to floor 3, but there's a big box blocking our way, and there's a couple of little boxes with some supplies in them. But over here we find the offices, and inside the offices, for some reason, there is a second blood analyzer. We already found literally all of the blood things to analyze in the game. So the only reason I can think of for this being here is on like the hardest difficulty, there is a 4th blood thing to analyze, and you find it in this room. So instead of just making you go back to the other blood analyzer, they were like, let's make it a bit more convenient and give you one up here. Why not? Because we don't want you to have to backtrack in this game. Even though this series started off with a game that had tons of backtracking in it, and everyone loved that game, and whatever. There's a couple of zombies in this room you can deal with, but you don't need to deal with them if you don't want to. You don't even have to go in this room. What you need to do is you need to come up here and unlock this door and continue on your way. However, if you go in here, you can find that document I was talking about before that tells you that the bad guys sent a zombie assassin after Alyssa Ashcroft, being Grace's mom, and that they were very lucky that that fire started back in the hotel because they didn't plan on it. Highly competent villains right here. They rely on luck every step of the way. But anyway, we go back up here and down the stairs. Over here, now that we have the wrench, we can open up this valve door that we broke the valve off already. And once we're in here, we can find the other organ, be it the heart or the lungs or whatever it is. I don't need to remember every little thing. But now we have all the organs. We have all 2 of the organs. And now that we have those, we can go back this way. And there's a zombie spawns in over here, even though he wasn't here earlier. And you can go into this room and you can find another inventory upgrade, which means that Grace now has 12 slots of inventory. And I believe the average player at this point will have at least one of the inventory upgrades, but I'm going to say we have 12 now, because that is as much as we can have at this point. And that's how much I had at this point, you silly goober. Ta-da! 12 inventories. So many inventories, and yet there could be so many more. Before we move too far ahead in the actual plot of the game, over here, this zombie on the stairs that you could have felled before, he turns into a blisterhead zombie. Now, what's a blisterhead zombie? They are a zombie that acts a little more erratically, like they can wave their arms around and attack you a little more quicker than the regular zombie, and they take like a few dozen bullets to kill, or just one shot of the Requiem. So if you're going to deal with one of these blister heads, then just use the Requiem. And these blister heads irk me, okay? They irk me, because in Resident Evil 1, you had the T-Virus, which is the same virus as this one, and in the remake for Resident Evil 1, they put in Crimson Heads, which is what these zombies are a ripoff of. And Crimson Heads were zombies that you felled already, but they could get up after a set period of time, and they would be more fierce, they would take more ammo to take care of, and they had long nails, so they were more ferocious too. And so these guys wanted to copy Crimson Heads, but the thing is, this is Resident Evil. You are the series that created the Crimson Heads. You could have just used the Crimson Heads again. Why not use the Crimson Heads again? Why create this new weird Dumbo creature? Anywho, another thing that I would like to touch upon is you can find 2 maps of this building just laying on these walls here, and I find it very lame that you can just find the maps on the walls, because it's just such a simple way to get the maps. And what do I mean by simple? And why am I disappointed by that? Let me tell you something, alright? Let me tell you something, you stinking new age video game players. This is a room in Resident Evil 1 Remake. And I have not played the original, so this is what I'm going off of. This is an artsy room with art paintings all over the art walls and a big statue in the middle. And this statue is of a woman carrying a vase, and the vase has a map piece in it. The map of floor 1 of the first Resident Evil, the remake of the first Resident Evil. So how do you get this thing? It's way too high up for you to get to, but wait, there's a little cabinet thing over there, a little dresser. So this room teaches you that you can push dressers around, at least every now and then. You can push these big pieces of furniture around, and you can push it over here, and you can climb on it, and you can get the map that way. So this one room teaches you that you can push objects, and you can climb on objects, and you need to be observant of your environment enough so that you can see the map in the first place, and that you would need to get to it. And also, if you leave this dresser thing pushed out, then there's a zombie over here that could get out and try to attack you. So you also need to learn that you can push the dresser back and the zombie cannot get to you. So you need to learn how to use your environment in a smart way. And this is all just a room where you can get one little map piece. Meanwhile, what does Resident Evil 9 do? They just put a map piece on a wall for you to get. And there is a place in Resident Evil 1 Remake where you just get a piece of map off the wall, and that it's fine for you to do that. I'm not saying it's not fine for you to just put a piece of map on a wall and have that be it. I'm just saying that they could have rooms like this that taught you multiple things and gave you the item that you were searching for. But in the modern Resident Evil, it's so much simpler and, in my opinion, less well designed than it used to be. So now that we have the organs for this corpse over here, we go back to the East Wing, go back to the exam room, and we stick the organs in the corpse. And the corpse wakes up and rips the strap off of its arm and gets up and it tries to attack you. However, you might think that you have to shoot this walking corpse in order to get it to die. That, after all, that's what a normal person would think after having to deal with all those zombies earlier. But this one corpse fellow, he just dies of his own volition after walking around for long enough. And then he just drops the level 2 wristband. And I'm just like, man, what? Why? Why did we do any of that? We could have just opened up the stinking wrist strap instead of going through any of that rigmarole of getting all these organs in order to put them in the corpse, in order for the corpse to rip its own strap off. It ripped its strap off. Why couldn't we? We're not a corpse. We're a human with human strength. Surely corpses are less strong than a human. Also, another thing I forgot to mention earlier is you can find the other lockpicks at this point, and you can also find the other safe combination and open the safe and get another 3 coins. So at this point, you should really have gotten everything from the parlor that you need to get. But anyway, now that we have the level 2 wristband, we can enter the isolation ward, and we can go all the way in here, and there's some documents explaining the blister heads. And by the way, sometimes just a random corpse will become a blister head, but that one guy on the stairs will 100% of the time become a blister head. And also, one of these zombies will also 100% of the time become a blister head. So that is at least 2 magnum rounds you might want to use, or not. But anyway, we can go over here and go into the security manager's office and find the 3rd and final big puzzle box that hides a cube of quartz inside of it. However, the buttons that normally have moon, sun, and star symbols above them, they're missing the moon, sun, and star symbols. Which is fine, because we have the puzzle solution literally just right here, and it's not hidden very well. Let me show you. This is how the puzzle solution is hidden. And it's like, oh, how on earth am I gonna solve this? And then you see that there's just an X prompt on this piece of paper that's right next to the dead security manager, by the way. He's dead at his desk. And this is what Grace does. Literally the easiest one to find in the whole game. The easiest combination to find in the entire game. This is dumb, stupid person logic for dumb, stupid people. But before I get too angry at the game, because trust me, it is about to get me very upset and angry. This puzzle box, it doesn't have any of its symbols on it, but we know the solution. It is just 2 hits of one button and then 1 hit on each of the other buttons. And I have run through the numbers in my head. This should take like 6 different possible combinations. So if a dummy like me can figure that out, surely an FBI analyst like Grace can figure that out. And even if she can't figure out how many different combinations there is Braille on each one of these buttons. So she should be able to figure out, oh, this piece of Braille, that is consistent between the end of sun and the end of moon. Therefore, that must be an N. And moon has two O's, so therefore these two repeating symbols should be the moon. Should mean that it's moon, because there's a double O in moon. So anyone with half a brain should be able to figure this out in no time at all. However, Grace is like, oh, the symbols are simply just not there, and I don't know Braille, so I guess I just can't figure this stupid puzzle thing out with my stupid little FBI analyst brain. And we get a cutscene. Grace, in her all-knowing wisdom, says with her words that come out of her mouth, and I quote, Braille. She says that. She says Braille with her mouth, with her words, with her brain, and then with her mouth. But then she sees a picture of two little girls that are on the desk of this security manager guy. And she looks at the dead security manager and she's like, oh, you must have put those girls in those cells, you stinking monster guy. And I'm just like, Grace, you don't know that. Don't go assuming. Just because he's the head security guy and just because he's the only person in the entire facility who has a level 3 wristband. He probably did do it, but I'm saying don't go assuming. There could have been someone else who did it. Like, what if Gideon has a level 3 wristband? What if he put the girls in there? You don't know, Grace, you stinking assumer person. But she looks at this picture of the little girls that's on the desk, and she is like, wait a minute. Flashback. That little girl was reading Braille with her fingers, and she was blind and she was reading Braille. Therefore, I should bring the little girl to this puzzle box so that she can solve the puzzle box for me. So, Grace takes the level 3 wristband, and you can try to click on the puzzle box again, but you can't even attempt to solve it without the little girl there. So the game literally forces you to go and get that little girl in order to continue with the game. Hatred. Hatred is what I'm feeling right now. Pure hatred. So as you're exiting the isolation ward, suddenly just 4 zombies spawn, and I guess you gotta go deal with them, because if you don't deal with them, then when you're bringing the little girl over here, they'll make trouble for you. So you can choose either to run past them or deal with them while the little girl is there, and then you go back all the way to the main hall. And one thing about this thing is that the chunk guy, if you leave him alive, he can just for some reason despawn at this point in the game. I guess when these 4 zombies spawn in, they were like, oh well, we gotta delete Chunk right now or else he'll like run into them and kill them all. So now we go back all the way to the cells, and we can check out this cell, which is the Marie cell, and we can find a little doll, but the little doll literally does nothing. In the entire game, you can just pick it up and look at it. And I'm just like, why? Why do you make this useless object for me to pick up? But what we're supposed to do is we go over to the other little girl's cell who's still there, the little blind girl. And we get a cutscene. Yay, so many cutscenes! So Grace hesitates to open the cell up, and she wonders, she's like, Why are you in there, little girl? And girl is like, I don't know, I got no clue. And Grace is like, can I come in? And the little girl is like, I don't mind at all. And Grace says that she is with the police, which is a lie. That is an outright fabrication, little missus. You're with the FBI, not with the police. Stinking fabricator. But she's like, hey, you gotta come with me. And the little girl person is like, well, why? And Grace is suddenly like, well, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Grace. And little girl is like, I'm Emily, which means I can now use her actual name. Because that's how that works. I'm introducing their names when their names are introduced, in case you didn't notice already. So Grace is like, hey, can you read something for me? And I suppose Emily is like, yeah, I can do that, I suppose. And she carries Emily out of there. And something I'd like to note is that Emily interacts with people infinitely better than Grace does, even though Grace is a fully grown woman, and Emily is a little girl who has only lived her life in cells that are like this. It is implied that she has only ever lived in this cell in particular, in this care clinic. And I'm just like, man, these sure are characters we're dealing with here. They sure are characters, man. So Grace, for some reason, instead of holding Emily by the hand and like leading her through this place, she has to carry Emily in her arms for some reason. And because of that, that means that you cannot use any weaponry or anything that can possibly even harm a zombie while carrying Emily. Because I guess you don't want to shoot things near the child or explode zombies near the child. However, you can still get bitten and die with the child in your arms. So Grace, while holding Emily, explains to her what's happening, what she needs her to do with the puzzle box. And this conversation, while it's happening, it does not let you leave this room, which is just a strange decision. Because we could just easily have this conversation continue out in the hallway. Like, why keep me in this one room? But if you hold the X button on this door, then it can skip the conversation, which I might bring up that whenever there is a cutscene, you have to hold the triangle button to make it skip. And I'm just like, why? Why are you making me hold the button? Why not make me like push pause and then push a particular button in order to skip the thing? Why make me hold the button every single time? It just gets rid of a good amount of replayability for me in particular. So I'm putting that as a point against replayability, because I don't want to hold down the button each time, especially when other Resident Evil games, and I might add better Resident Evil games, don't make me hold it down. They just let me push a single button to get rid of the cutscene. Anywho, if you have any unfinished business throughout the facility, like maybe there's a puzzle you didn't solve or some piece of ammo you left behind, you can leave Emily on this couch and go get it real quick, and then come back and pick her up, and then go on with the story to the puzzle box. So you're running through here, and if Chunk is alive, and if Chunk despawned before, Chunk will respawn and still be alive in this hallway, which can catch you by surprise and get him to kill you just by mistake, just by you running into him, expecting him not to be there. But anyway, you go all the way down here, you go back up here and down here and put Emily down at the puzzle box, and there's yet another cutscene. Why do they put so many cutscenes in little clusters like this? Just you have a little bit of game that is cutscene free, and then you're given like 20 different cutscenes in one place, and it's like, just let me enjoy the gameplay for a little bit before the next cutscene, please. And please make the cutscenes more enjoyable. So then when I actually see them, I'm kind of like relieved to see them, and I want to see them. But these are just annoying little cutscenes that don't really tell you that much, and sometimes just annoy you more than anything. So, you set Emily down at the puzzle box in this cutscene, and Grace, in her all-knowing, incredible, awe-inspiring wisdom, says, and I quote, this is a direct quote from the game, "It's like a giant puzzle box." Maybe because that is what it literally is, Grace. So then Grace hears some zombies clambering around in the other room, and she's like, I gotta go deal with that stuff out there. You just deal with this puzzle thing in here, Emily. So you're in this isolation ward, and 4 zombies spawn, and you gotta kill all 4 of them, and you're locked in here. This door locks itself. And you gotta kill all these 4 pretty much. So you better wish that you had enough ammo coming into this part of the game. And I might add, I'm watching like 5 playthroughs to get research on this game right now, and one of the playthroughs complained about this segment, saying that you could soft lock yourself here. And if you don't know, soft locking is when pretty much a winning state becomes impossible to achieve in a game, but you can still kind of play the game and it can act like it's functioning normally. And then there's another thing called hard locking, which is just pretty much where the game crashes and you gotta reset it. But this is not a soft lock. This is a test of skill, because I came into here with the worst gun, and I found that if I had just 7 bullets in the chamber, this arena gives you 9 bullets. That is if you clear out all of the items here and somehow squander them. Then you can go in here with like 16 bullets of ammo at the very least. And if the zombies die in the least amount of headshots possible, then you can make it through here just fine. One of them turns into a blister head at the end, but you don't have to kill the blister head at all. In fact, Emily says that she's done with the puzzle, and you can go and get to Emily when the blister head appears. So it is impossible for you to actually soft lock yourself in this section, unless you are just really bad at the game, and that's my conclusion. I will not hold it against a game if you can sockloft yourself. I will not hold it against a game if you can soft lock yourself in a place by playing the game poorly. That's an issue of the player and not of the game, at least in my opinion. I don't know what you think, because you're not saying anything to me. So you go back to Emily, and she's like, look at me, I got this quartz. Ain't I the bestest little girl ever? And suddenly Marie, the big monster girl, smashes into the room from this wall over here. And she grabs little Emily, and her skull that was blown open by Leon just regenerates itself in front of Grace. And I'm just like, well, wait a minute. Why did she choose to regenerate her skull in front of Grace instead of just having her skull regenerated by the time before she came to Grace? I think it's just so that the audience can see her regenerating her skull and be like, ah, spooky, I better not shoot that bad guy because she'll just regenerate herself. I think that that's what it's actually there for, and that's not good in my opinion. Storytelling wise, it's not good is what I'm saying. But then she goes down this hole with Emily, and Grace is standing there being like, well, I guess I gotta go down this hole too, because I can't just leave Emily like that. So Grace jumps down this hole, but you've gotta hold a button in order to get her to jump down the hole. And you know what I feel about having to hold down stinking buttons in these games. But before you jump down the hole, you want to grab any resources you can from this area, because this area is locked off when you come back to it later, which would have been very nice to know, because I missed one document in here in my first playthrough, and that means that I had to go into a second playthrough in order to get it. And that was the only document I missed in the entire game. Thanks, game designers, for telling me when I am entering a zone where I just cannot ever come back to the zone I was currently in. Another thing I'd like to mention before I get way too ahead of myself is, which I already have, but once Grace enters the parlor for the first time with that jewel that she finds in that one puzzle box that just has a button that you open, that you push and it opens, she says, "How does anyone come into this parlor normally?" This is a writing trick known as lamp shading, being that the writer is like, "Oh, look at this flaw in my story. Isn't it funny that that's a flaw in my story?" And then the audience laughs at the flaw, and then the audience doesn't take the flaw seriously because the author pointed it out and made them laugh, made a joke of it. But the thing is, that does not excuse the flaw for being a flaw. It just puts a lampshade on it and hopes that you don't notice it. And also it's very obvious dialogue from Grace, which you know I love at this point. But anywho, Grace has jumped down a big hole and we will be getting back to her later. We are now finally back to Leon after a long time, and he is tied up in a chair with Gideon right in front of him, and Gideon is all like, "Hey Leon, why are you here?" But Leon is all like, "I'm not talking to you," but he doesn't say it, he just doesn't talk. And Gideon is like, "Yeah, well, I could cut you with this scalpel because I'm a researcher and I use researcher things like morphine and scalpels." He actually has a scalpel in this scene. I'm not joking about that part. And Leon is just, he quips because of course he quips, because he's the cool guy who says cool things. Gideon, for some reason, just gives a couple of answers to Leon's questions, even though he doesn't know what Leon wants to ask him. But he's like, "Hey Leon, this is where I do my research, and this is where you can find the answers to your disease that you have, your horrible rotting skin, blackening skin disease." Which, he's kind of a reverse Michael Jackson right now. His skin is darkening. He could get it all tattooed. But Leon just quips, because of course he quips again, and Gideon cuts the side of his face. Oh no, he better not do that too much, or else Leon could be deadified. And he says that he studies human evolution, and he calls Leon just a failure for some reason, and he calls him arrogant. And Leon is arrogant, but I don't know if you could really call him a failure. I mean, he made it through at least three different apocalypses at this point in the story of Resident Evil games. So I don't know if you could really call Leon a failure at this point. But Leon, he uses a secret little rope cutty thing that I guess Gideon just did not take off of him. He took all of his guns and other things off of him, but this little secret rope cutty thing he did not take off of Leon. So Leon is able to cut the ropes around his arms and get free, and he attacks Gideon, but he only does it when Gideon is directly in front of him, staring at him. And I'm just like, man, you could have waited until he was like looking away from you to attack him, you know, element of surprise. But I guess we don't care about surprises over here. So Leon's able to go and grab his gun, but Gideon gets away. He goes over here and down this ladder, and he then makes the ladder go up into the ceiling. but not before Leon gets a couple of shots off, but he completely misses Gideon, completely, while Gideon is just literally standing there at the bottom of this trick stairwell that comes out of the ceiling and then goes back up. And Leon just does not try to open up this staircase again. He's just like, well, I guess that's closed, so he just goes to the table and grabs this med injector, which I guess Gideon might have been planning on healing him afterwards, so I don't know what's up with that, why he left that medical injector right there. But Leon stabs the injector in his face, and his face heals itself. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess video game logic does apply here. I don't know. There should be some sort of acknowledgement in the story of these healing things working like they do in regular gameplay, and I guess that's how they do it, but there should be some more acknowledgement, is what I'm saying. Anywho, he talks to Sherry, and Sherry sends him the map of the place, which is this one, maybe a little less rough than what I came up with. Some of these areas like this were a little tough to map out, because I'm taking these maps from online, and sometimes they just don't have the best maps on there. Sorry, people of the earth. But he calls Gideon crazy, and he says he's going to Gideon's office. I don't know why he's going to Gideon's office. I guess he thinks he'll find some info over there on, I guess, his disease. Because Gideon said that there's info on his disease here, and I guess Leon just intuits that that would be in Gideon's office of all places in this entire clinic. But anyway, we are now given gameplay, and we just run all the way over here, and over here we can find a document. And the document, it says that there's a second chunk. That one chunk that we killed as Grace, that wasn't the only one. There was another chunk, and at one point they were actual people, and they ate just tons of stuff until they become what they are now. And that's their backstory. They mutated and become super fat. And by super fat, I mean like 2,000 to 3,000 pounds fat. So fat that you would instantly die by staring at them. So once you're done reading the document, you go over here. There's a cabinet that's blocking your way into this room. So you have to, again, hold a button for a certain amount of time until Leon pushes the cabinet out of the way, and then once he's in this room, the cabinet falls back in place, which means you just can't ever go back in this area ever. I don't know why. I don't know what pushed that cabinet over. And oh yeah, before I forget, here is the other not door. It's a door that you can't get to, and it doesn't lead anywhere. It's just a door that looks like a door, but it's not a door. It doesn't lead anywhere. It's a not door. But over here, this is an arena, and as you can see, you can circle around this thing over here. I wonder if there's a big monster in the room that you can circle around by going around this thing. Using the same gameplay stuff again and again and again. Boy, isn't that exciting. So you run over here and you find a chunk. You find the second chunk, and he's chewing on a body, because of course he is, because he's a zombie too, like all the other zombies. But what's that right next to the body that he's chewing on? It's a shotgun. It's Leon's second weapon if you don't count the Requiem. It's a shotgun. Yay! And now you just go through this arena and use the shotgun to kill the chunk, and occasionally use the axe to get bigger hits on him. And you can run up to ladders in order to climb them. Ladders are a bit strange as Leon. You can push X to climb them, or you can run up to them and he will jump on them and climb them. And that one, where you run onto them to climb them, can be a little annoying. Because what if you're just trying to walk up to the ladder and get something that's under the ladder, but you're running there, and instead of running and going to the item, you run and then you accidentally jump on the ladder. That can happen in a couple of places in Leon. Leon's part of the game. I'm just saying it's annoying when it does happen. And there are a couple of things like this. Chunk can run into this, and he can break this, and that'll make another ladder appear, and Leon can get some things up there, and Chunk can run into these walls over here, and that will make more ammo appear for Leon. And there's a statue over here that you can knock down, and it'll trip Chunk. So there's a good amount of different little gameplay interactions in this one little boss fight. So it makes it a strangely complex boss fight for being such a simple one. And I do appreciate that this is as complex as it is. So, unironically, thank you, game designers, for making this as complex as it is. One thing that irks me, however, game designers, is this is the door to exit this place. It has a barrel lock on it, but Leon can just lift it up and move it over. However, if you try to do that before the boss battle is over, Leon will just say, nope, it's not time for that. Leon, you're trying to get through here with your life intact. You don't have to fight every single boss that comes in your way. You can just run past a couple of bosses, you know. Especially when the door is right there. But you kill Chunk, and then he gives you a couple of grenades, and if you want to, you can use Leon's crafting in order to stack the grenades on top of each other, essentially making a double strength grenade. But we'll get into Leon's crafting and inventory when it's time for his half of the game. For now, you go over here and there's a warped wardrobe thing. And you can finally open the warped wardrobes because Leon has the axe. And the axe can get into those warped wardrobes and warped doors. And in this particular one, you find a code to some sort of safe that you have not found yet. A safe that is underground, you could say. I will get into why it is very, very dumb to find this safe code and be able to use it later when we get to that, which will be probably in an hour or so. But then you can run down these stairs. There's not really much to do here. It's kind of just a corridor that you're running down. And then you can drop this ladder down into the next segment, which is the main Grace segment. The ladder leads into this office in Grace's segment, which means that Leon can now fully explore most of Grace's segment, and he can unlock all of these warped doors. And one gameplay thing that's kind of interesting is if you find just regular bullets in these doors, you can choose to take them as Leon, or you can wait to play as Grace again and get them as Grace. So that's a neat little thing you can do, but because Grace had so many resources at this point in my playthrough, because I got literally everything that I could get, I just opted to get all this ammo as Leon. But one thing that's interesting is that if there are any zombies anywhere that Grace left behind, Leon can just clean them up with his much higher strength. So on repeat playthroughs, it's like, well, I'm gonna leave more zombies in this area so that Leon can just take care of them because he's much stronger, and even with blister heads, he can take them out with far less ammo than Grace can. So if you have a choice between a weaker character dealing with zombies and a stronger character who is much, much easier to play as dealing with zombies, then why wouldn't you choose the stronger character? It just seems like simple mathematics to me. Another thing is around here you can find a document saying that the chef downstairs has the pantry key, which at my point in this playthrough, I was just like, well, duh, I got it off him already, you stupid idiot game. But I can see that some players might not have killed the chef because they were too scared to kill him, and maybe this will be their encouragement of getting to finally kill the chef, and then getting the pantry key and getting what's ever in the pantry. So on one hand, it's kind of obvious. On the other hand, it's like, well, what if someone just didn't find it yet in their playthrough? So I guess I'm fine with this document. It's fine. I'll let it go. Another thing about Leon and the enemies he can kill is one of them he cannot kill no matter what is Chunk. He could kill the Chunk in the attic, but the Chunk that is down in the east wing, that is meant for Grace to kill, he cannot kill. That Chunk despawns when Leon is running around this building. So you gotta kill Chunk as Grace, and you gotta kill Chunk as Leon. And another thing is that in the garage, you can go and see the bulldozer, but even though Leon has dealt with bulldozer stuff before that has tried to kill him, he does not react at all to seeing the bulldozer. He does react and have voice lines to him killing the songstress people, but him killing or just him seeing the bulldozer, he has zero reaction whatsoever, even though he has dealt with something very similar before. And I'm just like, well, that was a reference to Resident Evil 4, which had Leon as the main character, so why didn't you put in a reference line, you stinking stinkers? I'm mad. Make it more detailed. The blister heads Leon can kill with one special axe attack, the one that pops off the head. So that is very special. So you kind of just have to shotgun them in order to get them to stagger, or shoot them enough to get them to stagger. And then you do one axe attack, and then they're dead. Meanwhile, as Grace, you either need a magnum round or dozens of bullets to kill the blister heads. So I know which character I'm killing them with in all of my future playthroughs. And also, Leon can find a connoisseur charm, that's what it's called, but it's kind of just like an alcohol bottle, and what it does is it increases the firepower of a weapon that it is equipped to. Because with Leon, you equip charms to specific weapons, instead of having them on your person and just having them do passive effects. I mean, they'd still do passive effects, but you have to attach them to specific guns. And this particular one increases firepower for the gun that it is applied to. So I put it on my shotgun, and I use my shotgun for the rest of the game. Because why wouldn't I use my super powerful, fun shotgun? Because shotguns are shot funs, and that's what I say, that's what I'm sticking to. The isolation ward is completely locked off for Leon, you just can't go there. And if Leon finds any coins that Grace is supposed to find, then he cannot pick them up whatsoever. Which is, I guess, alright, but that just means that you have to come back there as Grace. And I'm just like, well, I'm already here, and the coin is literally just right there. Just let me pick it up. And then when I get back to Grace, have the coin appear in the item box, instead of having me come back all this way to this particular point that I already found as Leon, and make me come back there as Grace. Don't make me do that. Just stuff it in the item box once Leon's segment is over, so that when I'm Grace, I can get it out of the item box and use the coin. You stinking little game designers who don't think of things through. Anyway, where we're actually supposed to go is we go up these stairs which lead all the way over here, and at the top of the stairs there is a zombie with an explosive. And this zombie and this explosive were not here before. They just spawn in for Leon as like a sloppy tutorial that's supposed to teach you that Leon can shoot the explosive and have it explode in the zombie's hands. Because otherwise, the zombie will literally just throw the explosive at Leon, and you'll explode. And you don't want that to happen, do you? So just shoot the explosive and get past there already. And get past this warped door and into this lounge. And this is pretty much a big arena of its own. There are blister heads, there are a couple of regular zombies. Just shoot them with your big huge guns, and throw things at them if you can. And eventually you make it to this part of the wall, and this is a secret passage, but there are literally no indicators that there is a secret passage here. So how do you make it appear? How do you make the passage appear? Because right now there's just a wall here with a painting on it. Well, somehow Leon just knows that if he touches this painting, then the painting will move itself downward into the wall and reveal a lever, and if he pulls the lever, then this wall will start to move. And I'm just like, Leon, how on earth did you know any of that? Sherry didn't tell you that. You didn't find any documents that told you how to do that. You just did that on your own. What? But anyway, the secret door, jams part of the way through, and some more zombies appear, so you have to kill all those zombies. But once that's finally over, the door unjams itself and opens fully. And Leon's like, well, I guess that's my cardio for the week. That's the type of cool guy lines he says, and I think that's a direct quote from him. But don't quote me on that, quote Leon on that. Something about this segment, if you've played Resident Evil 4 or the remake of Resident Evil 4, something about this segment as Leon might start to feel a little bit off, gameplay-wise, if you're expecting the game to be anything like those games. And I will get into everything in Leon's part of the game when we actually get to his bigger part of the game, where you get more of his mechanics involved in things, and I'll go over his inventory system in that part of the game too. But just for now, there's this weird feeling that's like, this doesn't feel as satisfying as the other Resident Evil games with Leon in them. And I'm having to wait a very long amount of time between these Leon segments just to get to them and play for like a few minutes. And as we're about to see, this Leon segment is about to end. That was all the Leon zombie shooting gameplay you got. So it might just frustrate the player at this point, because you've been teased 3 times with Leon gameplay, and you're about to be teased with the 4th time of Leon gameplay before you can actually get to Leon's half of the game. If you can even call it a half, it might just be like 40% of the game, if that. But we'll get into all of that when we get to that. As for now, you just go through the secret passage, you enter the elevator, and when you get to the top of the elevator, you enter through this door, you know. And the door right in front of you is the one that opens. But intuitively, you would think that, well, intuitively, whenever you get in an elevator in real life, the door you went in through is the door you go out through. So intuitively, you go into the elevator and turn around, expecting that door to open, but instead the one that was right in front of you is the one that opens. So it's just a little odd design. I'm not going to mark it against the game. I'm just saying that it can get people turned around is all. So the elevator doors open, you step in, and you get a cutscene. And by the way, there's a gun over here, but Leon doesn't know about that yet. We'll know about it later, okay? Gun people. So in this cutscene, Leon is like, I found the secret private office of the Mr. Gideon, Sherry, who I'm talking to. And Sherry is like, good job, I hacked into the computer. And I'm just like, Sherry, if you can hack into this computer, how come you can't just hack into all of the gates in the building so that they can rise and you can unlock the security shutdown on the building so that I can get out of here without shooting more zombies and go to my car and be safe and possibly get Grace and we can all be safe together? Literally, the only thing keeping us from a safe escape is a gate at the front door that Sherry could hack into and just have us be free in a matter of minutes. But no, instead she hacks into this computer, which probably has the controls for the main gate anyway. So in this computer, Sherry finds documents saying that Leon and Sherry both have the T-virus. Oh no! But this kind of T-virus is more of like a latent version of it that builds up over time, which is why they have not turned into zombies throughout the rest of the series, I suppose. Despite being infected with the T-virus, and I have no idea how they got infected, they're just infected. But anyway, Sherry shows Leon the documents, which are of course heavily censored, except for the most important and plot necessary part of the document, which for some reason the name Elpis is not censored in this document, despite being one of the most important things in the plot of the game. Why? Why do you do this to me, Requiem? Resident Evil Requiem, also known as Resident Evil 9, the Stinker. At least story-wise, it's the Stinker. Stinker. So Grace's picture pops up on the computer with all of the secret documents next to it, and Leon is all like, what has she got to do with this? I guess Grace is very important to the villain's schemes. Let's hope that the villains had some sort of plan that meant that they could just pull Grace out of here at any time and that she couldn't just get killed by a random zombie, which she very much can at several points in the game, despite her being stupidly important to the villain's plans. But anywho, we are now heading into the underground segment of the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Center. And this video is coming to an end. That's part 2 of my Resident Evil 9 video. And man, this took forever to record. This took several hours. I got burnt out in the middle, had to come back. My voice is sore. At least a little bit sore. I could probably go on for a while longer, but I don't want my voice to hurt too badly, you know. Anyway, it was fun to make this, actually. The next one should be a lot shorter, and so should the one after that. So hopefully, it should take less time to gather all of my notes for the next 2 videos. But until then, if you want to support me, just if you like my stuff enough and you want to support me, then you can go into the description and find a link to my Patreon. On there you can find my books, and if you don't like me and my content here, then you can at least like my books, hopefully. Hopefully I make you smile one way or the other, because that's really what I'm doing here, is I'm trying to entertain you with my thoughts on a game. But that'll be the end of part 2. Hopefully this came out coherently. Hopefully more coherently than last time. Goodbye, everybody. I've got to go. Gotta go eat a Pringle, because that's what I did last time, and just like this game, I'm gonna copy myself. Yeah! Yet again, I hold the Pringle in my hand. Perhaps even multiple, you could say. You know, Pringles, legally speaking, cannot be called a potato chip. Instead, they can legally be called a potato crisp. So that brings to question, in my mind, do I really want to put something in my body that looks like a potato chip, but cannot legally be called such?